Chapter 13:21. There seemed to be a kind of divine light flashing in the sky. The clouds gradually dispersed. The image of a super giant suddenly appeared in the void. It was at least 10,000 meters tall and covered in blood. It was crazily waving its fists and bombarding the dome of the chessboard world. Every time this super giant punched, it was like a heavenly thunder god's hammer with unparalleled power. When it smashed, it could be seen that the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. When it stopped, the wind and clouds changed color. Every punch shook the entire chessboard world, as if it was about to explode. People immediately recognized that this supergiant was the bearded man who previously called himself Titan Yu's big brother. The demon dragon who was said to have just broken free after being sealed for tens of thousands of years. At first glance, it was hard to tell how powerful he was. Now, looking at the true form of the mystic dragon, looking at this indomitable, majestic, unreachable, and terrifying godly statue that looked down on everyone in the world like ants, even the arrogant captain and the invincible supreme being who had blinded everyone the moment he appeared felt extremely inferior. This was because they were not on the same level at all. If this divine power was compared to a strong man, then all the divine level experts present would be reduced to the state of a child. No one's divine power could be compared to it. The first captain on duty in the central shrine could not. The cunning and far-sighted Dongfang could not. And even the undefeatable Ji Zun, who had never lost a battle in his life, could not be compared to it. Even if the divine power of all the divine level experts present were combined, it would still be difficult to compare. How many people in the entire heaven realm and upper heaven realm could reach the height of a 10,000-meter tall golden body of a deity? Perhaps only the legendary deity Hall's Ji Zun, who was known as the number one person in the central shrine, could have such a divine personality. The demon emperor swallowed his saliva with difficulty. He wanted to speak, but he suddenly found that his vocal cords had become hoarse, and he could not make a sound no matter how hard he tried. Tuan, who was also a divine-level expert, was already trembling in fear. He had a small conflict with the demon dragon before, and he was glad that he was lucky, but also afraid. At that time, he boasted shamelessly and provoked the demon dragon, but the demon dragon did not take him seriously at all. Otherwise, the demon dragon could probably kill him 100 times with just one finger. Tuan felt a wave of fear when he thought about it. His heart palpitated. Too powerful. As expected of my most revered idol. The arrogant man was extremely excited at this moment. He danced with joy and spoke incoherently. "Ants, we are all ants." The two-headed dragon Gu Ong collapsed to the ground, no longer able to support his body. The beautiful queen, who was scared out of her wits, cowered behind him. She looked as delicate and pitiful as a chick in a storm. She no longer had the arrogance she had when she first came to Tong Tian Tower. The black bear demon and wild boar demon prostrated themselves in worship. They used the highest form of etiquette to express their reverence towards the demon dragon, their senior of the demon clan. Unlike them, what Yu Yang saw was not the might of this fake big brother. On the contrary, what he saw was the details that others had overlooked. Yu Yang simply could not imagine what kind of terrifying strength was needed to beat up such a powerful demon dragon until it was drenched in blood and riddled with scars. Its skin could not even wrap around its bones. Moreover, the demon dragon's image would disappear for a short while after every dozen attacks. In Yu Yang's view, it was not accumulating power at all. Instead, there was another person who might be much more powerful than the demon dragon, attacking him from behind to prevent him from destroying the chessboard world. Then, who was it that was hiding behind the demon dragon, attacking the demon dragon from the endless void outside the image of the chessboard world? Who was it that beat the demon dragon until he was covered in blood? Was it the deity temple's supreme Tianyu? Or was it the peerless Emperor Wu Shuang, who had always been very mysterious and never showed his face? Could it be that the two of them were the last two seeds of the East? Even with the deity temple's supreme Tianyu and the peerless Emperor Wu Shuang's peerless power, they had to listen to the East command? If it was really them, how would he reverse the situation? especially in this damned chessboard world. In the trap that the East had set up long ago, what should he do to reverse the situation and reverse the situation? Yu Yang sank into deep thought once again. However, the East didn't give him too much time to think. This wise man who had schemed for thousands of years attacked Yu Yang mercilessly the moment he opened his mouth. Titan Yu, as you can see, your big brother, the famous senior demon dragon, is doing his best to save you. He disregarded his own safety and risked his life to save you from this chessboard world. I also believe that if you can successfully escape and no longer be restricted by the rules of the chessboard world, then it is very likely that the dragon will return to the sea and the tiger will return to the forest. It is also very possible that you can reverse the situation from then on. Yes, I believe that you are that lucky. Titan Yu, to be honest, you are really the darling of heaven and earth. Your luck is unparalleled. I have schemed for so long, but I never thought that there would be a strong person like the demon dragon who would stand out and become your strong support. If it wasn't because I had schemed long ago and made sufficient preparations a few thousand years ago, perhaps I would have been defeated by the joint attack of the two strong supporters, Queen Vivian Li and the demon dragon, and become your stepping stone. Compared to the prison emperor, you have even more support than him. In Tong Tian Tower, there's never been such dedication and sacrifice like today. Everything that no one else has belongs to you. This is something that I and the previous successors of Tong Tian Tower could never hope for. But if there is a flaw or regret, it would be that the time given to you is really too little. If you had a few hundred years or even 1,000 years to grow, if you had the time that the prison emperor had, I believe that even if the entire heaven realm's divine rancors joined hands, they would still be defeated in front of you. Titan Yu, you are indeed a genius that only appears once in 10,000 years. You are also the only candidate to become the Holy Supreme Elder of Tong Tian Tower. It's a pity that you were born in the wrong era. If you were born a few hundred years earlier, Titan Yu, you were born in the most unfortunate era. This is the final moment of Tong Tian Tower's downfall. No one can stop it. Even you can't change its fate. Because tens of thousands of years ago, Tong Tian Tower was already destined to fall. Its fate is not something that a single person can change in a day or night. I have long seen its ending. That year, I was also like you, determined to reverse fate. I used my own wisdom to revive Tong Tian Tower. But it didn't acknowledge me, nor did it choose me. Instead, it kept this important task of saving it until a few thousand years later, until the day you were born. Do you know what I hate the most? It's not you, it's not the prison emperor, it's Tong Tian Tower's choice. It ignored my efforts, ignored my sacrifice, and stubbornly handed its fate to you, whose future is still far from being born. I originally thought that it wanted to hand its fate to the prison emperor, but I was wrong. Only now did I understand that the chosen one is you, Titan Yu, not anyone else, not the prison emperor, not even me. What a joke for it. We gave everything we had. In order to obtain its approval, we used all our wisdom, effort, and even our lives. This is not fair. For a few thousand years, do you know how much preparation work I have done? If it had chosen me, in these few thousand years, how much could I have saved? The most ridiculous thing in life is not that hard work is useless, but that there is no chance to work hard. My life, how successful, how brilliant my wisdom is, but why? I don't even have the right to work hard? Why? Why is this? It's not fair. This is too unfair. All right, since it doesn't need me to save it, then I'll step heavily on its body that is constantly sinking. In order to prove that its choice was wrong, in order to prove how ridiculous it was for it to miss me, I have decided that I will personally bury it in the boring waiting and choice. I want to let it know that the choice of fate must be correct, and it must never be late. After listening to Dong Feng's words, Yu Yang became silent. He was not surprised that Dong Feng would have such thoughts and hatred. If he was a person who gave and hoped to get something back, then it would not be strange for him to have such thoughts. If he was a person who firmly believed that something belonged to him must be firmly grasped in his hands, then it was normal for him to have this kind of hatred after losing it. because Dongfang was such a person. He had once thought that he was the successor of Tong Tian Tower, a savior who looked down on all living beings, the chosen one. But one day, he realized that he was not. The cruel truth made him unable to accept it, especially for a person like Dongfang, who was extremely intelligent. It was easier for him to get into a dead end, and it was even harder for him to walk out from his stubbornness. Once he could not obtain it, then he would develop a negative mentality and personally want to destroy it. This was Dongfang. This was the ultimate revenge of an arrogant person who could not bear the blow. Dongfang, to be honest, if it was you, you might really do better than me. Yu Yang nodded his head very sincerely. Moreover, I don't want to be the chosen one. I don't want to stand out to save the world, and I don't want to take on the responsibility of reviving Tong Tian Tower. I hate these things. What I want the most is to be with my beloved beauty under the moonlight, lovey-dovey, and live a little life that belongs to me. I am very unwilling to shoulder heavy responsibilities on my own shoulders, but no one has ever given me a choice. Do I have a choice? No. Everything was pushed by others, and it can even be said that you guys forced me to walk this path. Without external help, I am just a lazy person who eats and waits for death. It was you guys who forced me step by step into a dead end, forcing me to stand up and resist. I had no choice but to grit my teeth and fight against you guys. Even until now, it was you guys who invaded Tong Tian Tower and destroyed our home, and not us who invaded Heaven Realm and destroyed your central shrine. Now, you're talking to me about the choice of fate. In my opinion, that is a joke. In my opinion, this choice of destiny wasn't a choice made by Skysplit Tower, but something you forced upon my head. Without your pressure, without your threats, I would live a carefree and happy life. I would never have thought of reviving Skysplit Tower. If you complain about the unfairness of the heavens, I think you should first reflect on why you're not qualified. Why is it that people who look inferior to you on the surface are qualified? Is it because of you that fate did not choose you? Is it because of you that fate chose someone else? Who is to blame for all this? Is it someone else's fault? Or is it because you're also responsible? I respect you as a senior. That is why I answered the question in your heart. However, Dongfang, you have long been an invader who destroyed our home, an enemy who has killed countless living beings and committed all kinds of crimes. Let's not talk about what happened in the past. I have nothing to say to an enemy like you. Dongfang, what I want to tell you the most is that between you and me, there will be a battle to the death. No matter what tricks you want to play, as long as I'm not dead, I will accept it. Moreover, do you think you can win? Do you think that you can shake and deny my supreme will with a few tricks? What did I admit defeat? Do you think that you can defeat me with a few divine level rankers alliance helpers and a few innate skills? Yu Yang's face was calm. He spread out his hands, shrugged his shoulders, and finally said, "You have always been probing and stalling for time, allowing Fu Zi to appear, but I have also been learning from the battle. I have also been constantly adjusting my strategy during the battle. Do you think that I have resigned myself to fate after being trapped in your chessboard world? Do you think that I will not do anything and just wait for death like a fool? There's a saying that goes like this: you are very smart, but others are not stupid either." Dongfang was curious and exclaimed, "You also have Fu Zi?" There was no need for Yu Yang to answer. Beside his ear, the sound of a dog barking, which was extremely annoying, had already explained the answer. Chapter 1322. Hui Tai Lang appeared. It crawled lazily beside Yu Yang's feet, as if it had already slept there for 18 nights, drooling all over the ground. Maybe it sensed the astonished gazes of its surroundings. It opened its mouth wide and yawned out of boredom. It then raised its claws and stretched its body like a human. In the end, it seemed to have woken up a little. Seeing its master, it immediately became attentive and used its tail to wipe Yu Yang's shoes, looking like a loyal henchman. The Fey Emperor frowned. He had seen Dongfang expel this world, destroying Demon Wolf with his own eyes. Why would it appear in this chessboard world? Even if this guy really had the ability to ignore obstacles and travel through time, it should have stayed in the 5th level of Heaven's Stairway. It was impossible for him to come to the heavenly realm. Without Dongfang's permission, how did this dog enter the chessboard world? The most suspicious thing was that Dongfang, as the master of the chessboard world, did not know that this dog had come in. This was unbelievable. Even the invincible sovereign had to abandon a chess piece to exchange for a well-prepared one. Titan, you could not get out of the chessboard world. He was still under the restrictions of various rules. How could he summon this world-destroying demon wolf to help him silently? However, this was the truth. Dongfang would not make a mistake. The rules of the chessboard world did not fail either. Then what went wrong? Was it because of Demon Dragon's attack? Was it caused by destroying the chessboard world? Or did Titan, you have some kind of special skill that could hide from the rules? Dong, 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 dong. Demon Dragon's attacks became less and less, and the intervals between attacks became longer and longer. However, the wounds on his body multiplied. Now, not only Yu Yang, but all the spectators understood. Behind Demon Dragon, there must be a powerful guy who was constantly attacking Demon Dragon to prevent him from destroying the chessboard world. A guy who could beat Demon Dragon until he was covered in wounds. How could it be? Deity Temple's supreme heavenly chariot? Peerless Emperor Wu Shuang? Other than the two of them, there was no other possibility in the entire heaven realm. Rumble. An earth-shattering boom rang out, and the chessboard world seemed to have been shattered by an irresistible force. The heavens fell and the earth cracked. From an extremely distant space-time, a large golden hand pierced through the boundless obstacles and forcefully reached in. It was thousands of meters long. The giant golden hand made a few random grabs between heaven and earth. It seemed to be looking for Yu Yang. However, it wasn't able to find Yu Yang's current location. As long as it randomly clawed at the air a dozen or so times, countless mountains and rivers were pulled into a mess. Everyone looked at Yu Yang curiously, as if they didn't understand why he didn't help or approach the giant golden hand. Although with Dongfang around, it was unlikely that he would succeed, but trying was better than doing nothing, right? Yu Yang stood there quietly, as if he didn't see a big hand scratching in front of him, and also as if he didn't see the scarred giant golden arm stubbornly searching for him. It was as if there was an even stronger divine power that was dragging it. Even though he was unwilling, the giant golden arm was still dragged. His fingers dug deep into the ground, but he still couldn't resist the pulling force behind him. 5 deep ravines that were at least 100 meters deep were plowed on the ground of the chessboard world. Be it the mountains or rivers, they were all destroyed and changed beyond recognition. The giant golden arm was forcefully dragged out of the chessboard world, but after a while, it charged back in with all its might. He grabbed and pulled a few times. In the end, it was dragged away by an even more powerful force. Why didn't you take the opportunity to leave? That's the best chance. The arrogant man was fuming with rage as he roared at Yu Yang furiously. The demon arch remained silent as he pondered over a certain point that he didn't understand. Yu Yang did not pay attention to the arrogant man's question, nor did he pay attention to the other people's gazes. He only stretched out his hand and gently stroked the blazing fur on Grey Wolf's forehead. He had never treated this watchdog so well before. One must know that Yu Yang was always punching and kicking Hui Tai Lang. How could he be as comforting as he was today? Grey Wolf closed his eyes and enjoyed himself. The tail wagged happily. One man and one dog. It was as if they were immersed in some kind of spiritual exchange, completely ignoring everything else in the outside world. Dongfang remained silent for a long time. Eventually, Supreme Indestructible coughed and asked, "Titan you, how did you know? If I were you, I definitely wouldn't let the demon dragon discover where his chessboard world is. Even if it was discovered, I wouldn't let him attack it. Moreover, I believe that in this world, other than the Grimoire world, there's no single world that the demon dragon can't break. You would never make such a mistake. So, I'm sure that what I saw just now was an illusion, a trap set by someone else." Yu Yang smiled. His smile made many people feel ashamed from the bottom of their hearts. But the image of the demon dragon just now was real. Everything was real, including reaching out to search for it. Dongfang was still confused. "Yes, I didn't say that the demon dragon was fake. Yu Yang nodded. Then why do you still doubt it? Dongfang was curious. Cough. Maybe you've forgotten that there's a king whose special skill is Fata Morgana. I didn't know much about it before, but I happen to understand a little bit today. Dongfang and some other people worked together to create a space-time labyrinth. Although it's very real, it's still not enough in front of the king's miraculous Fata Morgana. This was Yu Yang's reason. Princess Yiming, I didn't expect that she would give up her slumber and even her life for you. That's why I said that you're very lucky. Every time you're in an important situation, there's always someone who stands up for you, and they do it for free, without any regrets. This is what I envy the most about you. You tried your best to create a battle, but you still didn't succeed. What a pity. Dongfang sighed regretfully. At least that idiot demon dragon fell for it. You should be satisfied. Yu Yang snorted coldly. Since you didn't fall for it, then I'll reveal my trump card. Dongfang's voice gradually became softer, as if it was getting farther and farther away. Perhaps you've already guessed my next two ambushes, and you've even been waiting for me to flip the cards so that you can make the final response. Well, let's begin the decisive battle. The chessboard world suddenly began to change. Countless divine lights gushed out. Heaven and earth were dyed in brilliant colors. The originally clean sky was unknowingly covered in countless transparent light shields. One by one, the world was divided into individual worlds, and each individual world became an independent existence. They were all connected through some kind of connection. This sequence was believed to be impossible for anyone other than the original creator, Dongfang, to understand the mystery behind it. Or perhaps, even the master of the chessboard world couldn't see all the complicated and special connections that were changing every second. This was because in the process of the chessboard world transformation, some unknown but infinite divine power, as vast as the sea of stars, was added. It was this divine power. Only then could the chessboard world truly be transformed into a multivariate world that was constantly changing but looked as calm as before. Perhaps you've already seen it clearly, or perhaps you're still confused. Titan you, as you've seen, this is the gift that I've meticulously prepared for you. If you can still solve it, then I, Dongfang, will admit defeat and have nothing to say. Come, young and lucky Titan you, let's play a game. If you can come to me within 10 days, then I'll let you leave my chessboard world. But if you still can't find me after 10 days, I'm sorry, this chessboard world that has already connected heaven, Heaven's Stairway, Tong Tian Tower, and the time corridor of God's ruins will explode and collapse. Of course, the chain reaction that follows will also destroy everything it's connected to. Perhaps you, who have advanced to the God level, can already continue to live in the shattered void, but everything that you once possessed will no longer exist. Dongfang's voice became softer and softer. In the end, it was so soft that it seemed to be separated by several worlds and several layers of space-time. What do you gain by doing this? Yu Yang shook his head in confusion. If I can't obtain something, then I have to destroy it, Dongfang replied. Even if you have to bet your life? Yu Yang asked again. This is my character, as well as my philosophy of life and independent godhood. Dongfang's voice was almost inaudible. In the end, it disappeared without a trace. Dongfang left. It was unknown where he had gone. However, for Yu Yang, this was just the beginning of the battle. Perhaps it was the immovable sovereign, perhaps it was the temple sovereign, or perhaps it was both. After Dongfang obtained the full help of the two, he used some secret method to connect the chessboard world, heaven, Heaven's Stairway, Tong Tian Tower, and the time corridor of God's ruins that he had personally created. Then he set up a 10-day countdown. Why was it 10 days? Yu Yang still didn't understand. It might be the shortest time for the temple's sovereign, Tian Yu, to open the time corridor of God's ruins, or it might be the shortest time for the peerless sovereign to defeat the demon dragon who had not yet recovered to his peak state. It might even be other reasons. However, Dongfang definitely had his reasons for saying 10 days. There was no need to doubt this. It was just that within a short 10 days, how was he going to pass through this space-time maze that had evolved from the chessboard world to arrive in front of Dongfang and stop him for doing such a senseless and crazy thing. With the captain, world butcher, the unfalling supremacy, the undefeatable supremacy, the boss immovable supremacy, and the divine palace's supremacy, Tianyu, as well as other god-level experts blocking his way, how could he quickly break through their obstruction? This battle was really a headache. On the other side, without waiting for Yu Yang to make a decision, the captain, who had been isolated in another space-time unit and was gradually moving away, laughed at the sky. Titan you, enjoy these last 10 days. Do you need me to give you a hint? Pitiful little fellow, if you knew that the space-time maze had over 1,000 individual worlds, and even with guidance, it would take a year to pass through it, would you be so scared that you would pee? As long as I, the captain, am here, you can forget about passing through my door. However, I still hope that you will be able to arrive in front of me and let me have some fun. Ha! Yu Yang looked around and realized that Tu Wan, Tu Sure, the unfalling sovereign, the undefeatable sovereign, and the others had all been separated into different individual worlds, and they gradually disappeared from his sight. As for the spectators, including the Demon Emperor, they had all returned to his side. However, they had returned to his side. When the arrogant man saw this, he walked toward Yu Yang with large strides. My hands are itching. Let me help you. However, the strange thing was that no matter how he walked, he couldn't reach Yu Yang's side. Even if he was only 1.5 inches away from Yu Yang, he couldn't touch Yu Yang's body. It was as if there were millions of space-time barriers in the clearly empty void. The arrogant man was angry and punched and kicked, but no matter how hard he tried, it was useless. He couldn't stand on the same level as Yu Yang at all. The Demon Emperor gently waved his hand, signaling for him to calm down. It's useless. We are still spectators. Nothing has changed. As long as Dongfang is still alive, we can't do anything. At this moment, Grey Wolf raised its head and roared. It, who was originally at Yu Yang's feet, suddenly ran toward its master. However, no matter how it ran, it couldn't return to Yu Yang's side. Pu Gui, who had his chess pieces exchanged, was in the same situation. Yu Yang's body swayed slightly. He suddenly found himself back in the White River Valley on the 5th level of the Heaven Stairway. His feet were on the blood-colored altar, as if he had never left. The previous battle also seemed like it had never happened. However, the feeling of being in the chessboard world was still there. It seemed that even if he returned to the 5th level of the Heaven Stairway, he was still in the chessboard world. Nothing had changed. Even this blood-colored altar had inexplicably become a part of the space-time labyrinth. Who in the world had such a terrifying ability to turn all the space-time in the sky and underground into a labyrinth-like existence without anyone noticing? Wasn't this ability too terrifying? F***CK. Why are all the bosses that I've fought so abnormal? Are there no dungeons that I can clear? Yu Yang speechlessly pointed his middle finger at the sky. Chapter 1323. Heaven Stairway Level 5 Blood Altar. Yu Yang walked to the edge. He took a light step forward. His other foot was still on the blood altar, but the world in front of him had completely changed. He was no longer in the desolate White River Valley, but in the Thunder Fortress on the 6th floor of Tong Tian Tower. Yu Yang retracted his foot and looked around. It was still the familiar Heaven Stairway Level 5 and the White River Valley that had been destroyed by many battles. Who was it? What ability did they use? Who connected the Heaven Stairway Level 5, White River Valley, and the Thunder Fortress on the 6th floor of Tong Tian Tower together? How is he going to solve this space-time maze? Do any of you have any insider information? Yu Yang turned around and looked at the crowd of spectators. This is the first time I heard of it. The arrogant man shook his head and waved his hand. He did not know anything. This is the secret of the Heaven Realm. The double-headed dragon Gu On also did not know. The beautiful queen seemed to have heard a little about it, but her lips trembled. She avoided Yu Yang's gaze and did not say anything. It is said that the space-time maze was created by the Master of the Void in the Heaven Realm, Enigma. Other than him, no one could solve it. The Master of the Void, Enigma, went to look for the end of the world with infinite dimensions. He gave the only key to Tian Yu's master, and Tian Yu's master passed the key to his favorite disciple. After spending several thousand years, the heavenly chariot built the central divine palace on the original foundation of the space-time maze. Then, with the help of the immovable sovereign and other god-level experts, he fixed the central divine palace on the sacred peak of the Great Light Mountain, turning it into an impregnable and unbreakable eternal divine palace. Because it was too long ago, there is no way to verify whether this legend is true or not. However, in order to solve this chaotic situation and successfully leave this ever-changing and endless space-time maze, it is necessary to obtain the correct guidance and key. The Demon Emperor gave Yu Yang some hints, but he could not help Yu Yang more. He did not even know what the legendary space-time key looked like. Thanks. Yu Yang didn't insist. Maze games were interesting, weren't they? Tighten you if you want to find the East in 10 days. It's impossible to do it alone. You need more helpers. Too Sure, who seemed to be Too Sure's illegitimate son. Oh no, it should be Jean Sure. He suddenly called out to Yu Yang. What are you trying to say? Yu Yang looked at him in confusion. The appearance of the World Destroyer Demon Wolf and Pu Gue proves one thing. A genius like you, Titan you, definitely has some kind of secret technique to pull more helpers into the chessboard world or this space-time maze. Why don't you summon more secret reinforcements to your side? If it's just you, how can you possibly travel through over 1,000 worlds in just 10 days? Jean Sure looked deeply into Yu Yang's eyes. Aren't you Too Sure's son? Why don't you care about your father and brother, and instead care about me, your enemy? Yu Yang asked with a smile. Because they and I are the enemies. The enemy of my enemy is my natural ally. Jean Sure nodded with force. Can I trust you? Yu Yang smiled innocently. It's necessary to be vigilant, but you can try. Jean Sure smiled too. If we are allies now, do you have any good suggestions? Yu Yang scratched the back of his head and looked like a beginner who just came out to the underworld. I have observed you carefully, Titan you. It could be said that from the start of the battle until now, you have never used your true strength. In fact, you have never trusted anyone. Even though Sir Demon God has confided in you wholeheartedly, you still don't have any basic trust in him. I can't understand why your vigilance is so strong, to the extent that you keep everyone outside the door. But I believe that you definitely have your reasons. I don't expect you to treat me as a friend, as long as you don't treat me as an enemy. Then, I hope that you can use a bit of calmness and reason to carefully consider my next suggestion. Find helpers as soon as possible, like the world-exterminating Demon Wolf and Pu Gue, or even stronger, to explore the space-time labyrinth together, find the exit as soon as possible, and find the East. Jean Sure looked at Yu Yang sincerely. Do you think that the 10-day period in the East is real? Yu Yang also looked at Jean Sure, as if his gaze could see through his soul. The real can't be fake, and the fake can't be real. Jean Sure said very vaguely, but Yu Yang understood. He turned around and walked towards the statue of the goddess. When he was almost in front of the passage, suddenly, he turned his head and looked at Jean Sure. Say, if Tong Tian Tower were to explode into pieces, what benefits would Tian Yu get? Jean Sure was stunned. For a moment, he didn't know how to answer. When Yu Yang turned around again, he raised his foot and shouted, The god's ruins won't disappear. It's sealed, perhaps through the space-time explosion of Tong Tian Tower. The seal of the ancient gods can be unlocked. All kinds of secret treasures that can't be obtained will appear. Of course, this is what I think. Maybe the truth is not like this at all. Yu Yang no longer looked back, but waved his hand. You're right, this is the best answer. His figure quickly disappeared in the passage. Only a group of spectators remained, looking at each other. What did this Titan you mean? Did he believe him, or was he still suspicious? If he didn't hurry through the space-time labyrinth, where'd he run to? Could it be that by running into the passage, he would be able to enter the original heaven stairway and escape the space-time labyrinth? Impossible, right? Dong Fong, Tian Yu, and the others have planned this for a long time. Would they leave such a big loophole for him? Yu Yang walked through the passage. In front of him was the original heaven stairway. It was exactly the same, nothing had changed. But when he took one more step forward, in front of him, The entire heaven stairway had changed. It became the plaza outside the Tian Luo Imperial Palace. Looking up, even the soldier on duty in front of the teleportation portal was still doing his job diligently. "Honest, Zhang, you're on duty today?" Yu Yang even greeted the soldier, who had a serious expression on his face. "Yes, greetings, third young master." When the soldier saw Yu Yang, he hurriedly bowed in greeting, his attitude incomparably respectful. "Where's Big Mouth?" Yu Yang reached out and patted the soldier's shoulder. He's on night duty." The soldier was so excited that he almost couldn't speak. "Do your best." Yu Yang patted the soldier's shoulder again. "The next time I see that old bastard Eastern Sky King, I'll ask him to promote you." Yu Yang retracted his leg. The soldier's face that was flushed with excitement disappeared. In front of him, he returned to the heaven stairway world with the indomitable world tree. Yu Yang took another step forward and realized that the scene in front of him had changed to the entrance of the Ivy Academy in Shangjing. Through the guardhouse's window, he could see the old cunning fox wretchedly holding a fairy painting book. His eyes had turned into a heart shape, and his saliva almost dripped down his goatee. As a teacher, how could he be like this? Yu Yang, who had a sense of justice, rushed forward and snatched the fairy painting book into his hands. The old cunning fox rolled on the ground, looking as if he didn't want to live anymore. However, Yu Yang laughed out loud and turned around to escape. When he stepped into the heaven stairway passage, the academy disappeared. The old cunning fox who chased after him with a kitchen knife also disappeared. Behind him, it became the lonely heaven stairway world. However, the fairy painting book in his hands was still in his hands. Yu Yang flipped through it. In the spirit of not wasting a good thing, he kept it in his bag. Following the passage, Yu Yang walked out of the blood altar. What surprised him was that the spectators on the blood altar had actually disappeared. It was completely empty. There was not a single person in the entire White River Valley. Following that, Yu Yang acted exactly the same way he did when he rushed to the blood altar the moment he woke up. He searched the ground as if he was searching for ants. Not only that, but this guy also wretchedly climbed up the statue of the goddess, stretched out his sinful hands, and touched the statue of the goddess. That expression of his was as annoying as it could get. Fortunately, no one saw it. Otherwise, even if it was Fatty High, that bastard, he would also look down on the guy from another world. After touching for a long time, Yu Yang suddenly sighed. "I thought that I was a smart person, who didn't know that I had been deceived from the beginning. Fortunately, I was a suspicious person. Fortunately, I had passed through the gate of life and death and obtained some insights about Fata Morgana from His Majesty. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know how I was played to death." He closed his eyes. He stretched out his hands. Supreme will instantly erupted. The entire blood altar and even the entire White River Valley instantly shattered like a mirror. Everything in the world turned into powder. There was a black hole that swallowed everything. As the world disappeared, suddenly, a light shone down from an unknown place and shone on Yu Yang's body. Then, the sun rose from the east and the world brightened. A whole new world appeared in Yu Yang's vision. The chessboard world, the Eastern chessboard world. Yu Yang realized that he hadn't even taken a step out of it. On the other hand, the Monster Emperor and the others who were originally watching the battle. At this moment, they were still standing on the blood altar, even though they were far away in another space and time. "Ridiculous. I am a chess player, not a chess piece. Do you really think that a mere chessboard world can imprison me for a long time?" Yu Yang stretched out his hand. Suddenly, four strange doors appeared around him. With him as the center, they were arranged in the east, south, west, and north directions. The four strange doors were similar to the three doors that had been rejected by the Eastern world, but they were slightly different. These four doors were more mysterious and profound. In the chessboard world, without the assistance of the Eastern world lords to suppress it, it couldn't stop the birth and independence of the four doors. Yu Yang waved to the monster the arch and the others who were watching the battle in the distant space and time. He casually opened a strange door in the east. He strode forward. He walked in. He didn't care what kind of existence the world behind the door would be like. After entering the door, the whole world changed completely. The chessboard world disappeared, and what replaced it was the door to heaven that Yu Yang had been to before. There was someone under the door to heaven realm. He clapped his hands briskly and gave a warm and sincere welcome to Yu Yang. Welcome to the door to the world. I am your old friend, the captain. Yes, I was very worried before. I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to wait for your arrival. You should know that some idiots, once they enter the space-time maze, would never be able to get out, forever lost in the ever-changing space-time. But you didn't. You walked out very quickly. Very good. Titan, you didn't disappoint me. As expected of the peerless genius that Tong Tian Tower doesn't meet in 10,000 years. You got out of the maze so quickly and came to me. This is really great. Although I am your enemy, I can't help but say that you are really a genius. You guard the door dog, flattering me without any capital. Are you trying to ask for a reward from this young master? Yang was a good child and always spoke politely. Don't be like this. Later when I beat you until your teeth fall all over the ground, you will know how painful it is to have a cheap mouth. The captain was actually not angry at all. I think the opposite is more likely. Yu Yang laughed. Everyone who enters, leaves, or passes through the door cannot use their own divine power. This is the law that I set in this space-time. As the first guard of the central shrine, the captain also laughed. You can't summon beasts, use your grimoire, and can't use your divine power. What do you have to fight against me? You clan's third young master, let me teach you something. In this world, not everything can be solved with brute force. Your divine power is stronger than mine. That's right, I won't deny it. But you can't do anything. You can only wait to be beaten. So what if you are Yu Clan's third young master? So what if you are Tong Tian Tower's #1 genius? In the chessboard world, in the space-time maze, under the door to heaven realm that I am guarding, no matter how strong you are, no matter how arrogant you are just a pitiful worm that can only take a beating and can't fight back. Chapter 1324. I'm very curious. You can't use your grimoire, summon your beasts, and have your divine power shackles. What are you going to use to beat me up? Yu Yang's eyes were filled with disdain, as if he was looking at a spider that was flaunting its prowess with a big web that was woven by someone else. If you still remember, I'm a #1 guard of the central shrine. The captain reminded him in an extremely good mood. You want to talk about that door? Yu Yang finally remembered. That's my trump card. The captain didn't mind Yu Yang's rudeness at all. He couldn't wait to forgive Yu Yang with the heart of a victor. He felt that as a tragic loser, no matter what he did or said, it was all worth forgiving. After all, he was destined to be the victor. The captain's hand lightly brushed past the heaven realm gate. Extremely gentle. It was like caressing the skin of a lover. Suddenly, there was a slight ripple on the heaven realm gate. Although it was very slight, the ripple of space and time was enough for the captain, who couldn't use his divine power to complete his special skill. Door. Just like the gate of the shrines, it opened up in a dazzling radiance. Then, thousands of shrines warriors, under the leadership of their elite leaders, rode on the same silver sky dragon horses and rushed out like a tide. In a short while, they filled the entire ground of the heaven realm gate. Amidst the thunder-like galloping, there was a kind of footstep that was even louder than thunder. The ground was also trembling, for shrine guard commanders, who were Titan giants, squeezed out from the strange door that the captain had opened with difficulty. Amidst the shouts of the shrine warriors, their whole bodies were burning with fighting intent as they approached. These Titan giants looked to be 500 meters tall. With every step they took, a 10-meter deep footprint would be left on the ground. Under the captain's proud gesture, the 4 guard commanders all knelt down on one knee, showing their highest respect to the #1 guard of the shrine. Loyalty! Loyalty! The shrine warriors also got off their horses and knelt down on one knee. At the same time, they placed their right hands on their chests and cheered passionately. Do you see that? They are my most loyal subordinates. Perhaps you, who are also a god-level expert, will ignore their existence outside of the chessboard world and the space-time maze. But now, you don't have any power to resist. Other than being ravaged by my subordinates, do you think you have a second choice? The captain laughed very happily. He felt that ever since he met you, Titan, this pervert, this was the first time he felt that life was so beautiful. To defeat the peerless genius of Tong Tian Tower that only appeared once every 10,000 years. He didn't need the undefeatable Ji Zun who had never been defeated, nor did he need the ever-scheming Dong Fangzheng. He alone was enough. In front of the heavenly gate, he was invincible, at least. In a situation where Titan you couldn't use his godly power, all he had to do was sit comfortably on the high ground and watch this guy get beaten up. As for the invincible sovereign and the invincible sovereign, he could just let them continue to cool off and wait. Perhaps when he was bored, he would throw Titan you into the fray and let them drink some leftover soup and snatch some of the credit. In the face of such a big battle, even a blind man could see it. Yu Yang clapped his hands vigorously and praised. Not bad, there are so many subordinates. He praised. Not bad, there are so many subordinates. I say, Captain, you're really worthy of being the #1 watchdog. Your invincible cow flea is really good. No, it's the invincible dog flea. Pausing for a moment, Yu Yang giggled as he drew a big circle in front of him with his hand. With a light touch, the circle turned into an incomparably strange door. However, Senior Captain, who has obviously gotten dementia, please allow me to remind you that your trump card, that mysterious door, I actually know how to use it as well. Although I learned it secretly, I can guarantee that I won't be any worse than you. After Yu Yang finished drawing the strange door, he didn't look at anyone else. He walked leisurely. He walked towards the heavenly gate on the other side. The captain flew into a rage. Just as he was about to order his subordinates to attack, he suddenly realized that the strange door that Yu Yang had drawn just now was slowly opening. Similarly, there was a wave of warriors surging out from inside. The one who rushed at the very front was an extremely lowly-looking fatty that made people's teeth itch with just one look. For some reason, if he didn't punch the fatty's face, he would feel extremely unhappy in his heart. Behind the fatty was a skinny man who looked like someone owed him 108,700 yuan. Even the legendary coffin face wasn't so black and smelly. Behind him was a block of ice. If it wasn't for the fact that this human-shaped block of ice could still breathe, he would have really mistaken this fellow as an ice sculpture. The captain didn't even have time to look at the unstoppable tide of people that rushed out like water from a broken dam. His line of sight was blocked by a figure that was as huge as a mountain. When he raised his head to look, he was so shocked that his heart almost stopped beating. A Titan lowly, who was 3,000 meters tall, forcefully pushed open the narrow, strange door and angrily squeezed out from inside. She hadn't even straightened her back when she hurriedly rushed over and raised her mountain palm. With a loud bang, she slapped the Titan commander who didn't retreat fast enough in the ground. He looked at the huge pit that had a diameter of at least 10,000 meters on the ground. He looked at the 500-meter-tall Titan commander being slapped into the ground like a toy. Not even a strand of his hair was left outside. All the guards of the temple had the urge to pee their pants. Not to mention them, even the captain, who was a god-level expert, had difficulty swallowing his saliva in his throat. He had set up a rule for himself that no one could use divine power. He felt slightly regretful. Fortunately, as a god-level expert, even if he couldn't use divine power, he still had some pride. After all, he was a high and mighty god-level expert. So what if there were ants? Could they even bite a hair off a god-level expert like him? Even though that Titan lowly was a little terrifying, he just had to be careful and avoid her. It would be fine as long as he didn't fight her head-on. He had an endless supply of temple martial artists under the door to the heavenly realm. If they wanted to compete in terms of explosive power, then so be it. There's a golden-headed tortoise here. Don't fight over it. It's mine. Listen up, all of you. I've already taken it. As soon as that shameless fatty rushed over, he made a big fuss. The captain, who was forcing himself to remain calm, could no longer remain calm. You scum, who's yours? Open your dog eyes and look. I'm a god-level expert. How can scum like you challenge me? The captain was furious. Just be a taker. You were born to be a taker. Shout if you want to feel good. Don't stand on ceremony with me. The damn fatty shouted. If you're fast, you'll get it. The skinny man with the coffin face was actually very shameless. He attacked the weak spot right from the start. Snatch! That ice cube could actually speak. A large group of people surged over and drowned the captain in an instant. Behind the door to the heavenly realm, Yu Yang discovered that this was another space-time, another world. This world was different from the previous one. It was completely unfamiliar. Yu Yang had never been here before. He had never even heard of it. In front of him, there was a god-level expert whose entire body was flickering with dazzling radiance. He was quietly waiting for him. Yu Yang didn't need to look to know that such a flashy and arrogant god-level expert could only be the undefeatable sovereign. When other god-level experts appeared, they were also somewhat imposing and ostentatious. However, the undefeatable sovereign was gorgeous and dazzling. There really weren't many of them. The undefeatable sovereign had his eyes closed. He was quietly standing in the center of an arena. It was as if he had been waiting for Yu Yang for thousands of years. Yu Yang also noticed that this arena was very strange. It was at least 10 kilometers in diameter. It was like the dome of a mountain, but it was wide at the top and tapered at the bottom. It stood upside down on the ground. The arena was surrounded by a sea of lava. Rolling heat waves soared into the sky from time to time, shooting lava over 10,000 meters into the air before being tossed back down. In the center of the arena, there was a special rune of a sword and shield clashing. This is the Divine Temple's arena. The undefeatable sovereign slowly opened his eyes. His gentle and beautiful voice seemed to be reciting a poem. This is also the battlefield where I have never been defeated in my life. I have already won 99,999 times here. As long as I defeat you, I will obtain an unprecedented 100,000 victories. From then on, I will enter the history of god-level experts established in ancient times. Titan you, I have always been searching for a perfect ending. I want to achieve the most important 100,000 victories in my life. All these years, I have always regretted that no one with great value or special significance has appeared, until Dongfang found me and recommended you to me. You think you've already won? Yu Yang sneered. That day, I opened my grimoire and used the undefeatable innate skill to carefully sense it. The result was the same. Whether it was the law or fate, they both determined my victory. The undefeatable sovereign believed in his own innate skill. It was the law that would never be wrong. I guess you haven't looked at your grimoire since that day. Yu Yang suddenly guessed. I only need to sense it once. The undefeatable sovereign felt that it was something that was destined to happen. If you can still open your grimoire, I suggest you look at it again. Perhaps you will discover a completely different answer. Yu Yang flexed the bones in his arms and stretched his neck. Then, he calmly said something that angered the undefeatable Jizun. You and I have no enmity, so I really don't want to fight you. If I defeat you, people might say that I'm bullying a sissy. What did you say? The undefeatable sovereign's eyes widened. The greatest humiliation he had ever suffered in his life was probably not as vicious as Yu Yang's. Nothing. I just want to say that you're a trap. Yu Yang wanted to recommend a book to the undefeatable sovereign. It was called the Sunflower Treasure Book. I'm going to kill you. The undefeatable sovereign was so angry that his navel was crooked. Do whatever you want. Yu Yang shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Damn Titan you, I'm going to cut you into 1,000 pieces. The undefeatable sovereign was so angry that his voice was as sharp as a needle. All right, Yu Yang had already expected the undefeatable sovereign's extreme reaction. That's right, he guessed that there was no one in this world who would be as arrogant as a peacock after being called a sissy. Chapter 1325. The undefeatable sovereign was furious. He really wanted to beat this brat to the ground, cut him into 18 pieces, and arrange him into 36 different positions to dry him up. At this moment, a bright moon suddenly appeared in the sky. It slowly slid out from the clouds and shone brightly, as if it was a halo. That infinitely gentle radiance shone on Yu Yang's body. When the undefeatable Ji Zun saw this, he had a strange feeling in his heart. The young man in front of him had suddenly become a stranger, as if he was no longer the Yu clan's third young master from the Tong Tian Tower's soaring dragon continent, but someone else. What was going on? Why was this happening? Was it Titan Yu's hidden divine power? Or was there help coming? The undefeatable sovereign didn't even have time to figure out what was going on before he saw Titan Yu rushing towards him like a meteor. Rising tide. The undefeatable Ji Zun stretched out his hand gracefully. Over the past thousands of years, he had obtained an endless amount of divine power from other divine rankers and his own independent cultivation. It was as vast as the sea. Once it was activated, it immediately turned into a tidal wave of divine power that swept towards the furious Yu Yang. Even a meteor was useless in front of the sea. At most, it would create a 1,000-foot-tall wave. The wave turned into a terrifying whirlpool. It completely swallowed up Yu Yang's divine power. Ripples spread out from the dueling arena. The further they went, the lighter they became. Finally, there were only ripples left. Falling tide. The undefeatable sovereign slowly retracted his hand. Yu Yang, who had been thwarted, wanted to escape. However, the boundless divine power had an incredible suction force that easily pulled him back to the undefeatable sovereign. Without waiting for Yu Yang to punch again, the undefeatable sovereign spun his left hand. Yu Yang started spinning madly in the terrifying divine power whirlpool. As he spun dizzily, a shadow dashed out from Yu Yang's body. It had a physical form. It was as fast as lightning. Furious fists flew towards the undefeatable sovereign's face. Unfortunately, the undefeatable paragon had vanished into the vast sea of god power. It was as if no one could find a needle in the sea. Yu Yang's next attack failed. The calm surface of the water was broken, and waves surged. In the middle of the waves, the undefeatable paragon reached out and tossed Yu Yang into the air above the dueling arena. When he landed, the pressure from the tide of godly power that was over 1,000 meters high. If there were no mishaps, the undefeatable paragon would definitely win this battle. Invincible talent and law of invincible would never be wrong. As long as it was the result of the battle that he had sensed back then, it would definitely come true. The only thing he couldn't be sure of was time. How much time would he need to completely defeat and kill this Titan Yu? This was the only variable. Of course, this was not a problem. Since the outcome of the battle was already decided, wouldn't it be better to torture the enemy a little longer? Right now, he could only hope that the number one genius of Tong Tian Tower, the Yu clan's third young master, would not be too weak and allow him to play for a little longer. Titan Yu, you might be a genius and you can defeat many people, but you will definitely not be able to defeat me, the undefeatable sovereign. Because, in a sense, I, the undefeatable paragon, am a sea of godly power. No one can defeat the sea. Using human power to fight against the sea, that is simply too laughable. The sea can bury anything. This includes lives, kingdoms, civilizations, history, and even the world. You will never be able to see through the depths of the sea. You will never know its power and heaviness. Even if it is a billionth of its power, it is enough to swallow you whole. Young man, no matter what methods you use, you will never be able to escape from its range. Because it is a boundless sea. Come, don't struggle anymore. Just be like those losers that I have defeated and absorbed. Bury them all under the power of my law and become a part of me. Do you know why I can become a sea that can contain hundreds of rivers and all living things? It's because there are countless losers like you who selflessly contributed your strength. When the undefeatable paragon grabbed the dizzy Yu Yang's shoulder and was about to absorb the godly power from his heart, Yu Yang suddenly opened his eyes. He punched him. He punched him in the face. The undefeatable paragon's handsome face contorted from a punch. Yu Yang grabbed the undefeatable paragon's shoulder and lifted him up before smashing him into the ground. He nailed the undefeatable paragon headfirst into the stone floor of the arena. Then, he said sincerely, "Thank you very much. I have secretly learned a move from you. Thank you for telling me what the sea is. However, I want to remind you that if you are the sea, then I am the moon. He grabbed the undefeatable Paragon's legs and lifted him up forcefully. Then he pulled this god-level expert, who had never been defeated in his life, off the ground of the arena. The instant the undefeatable Paragon resisted Yu Yang's legs, he stepped heavily on his face, which was so handsome that even women would be jealous of him. Then he smiled at the god-level expert in an extremely good mood. When did you hear that the sea could defeat the moon? What you defeated was only the reflection of the moon in the mirror. Do you really think that the sea can devour the moon? What a joke. On the contrary, the moon can make you run around in circles. If it wants you to rise, it will rise. If it wants you to ebb, it will ebb. It has complete control over it. The undefeatable Paragon wanted to protest. You don't even have the moon innate skill. You have nothing to do with the moon. How can you transform into the moon god? However, Yu Yang didn't give him the chance to do so. When he stepped on the undefeatable Paragon's bird nest for the 108th time, the sound of eggs breaking could be heard. Yu Yang, who couldn't hear it clearly, carefully pressed his feet on the nest for a while. Finally, he confirmed it with great difficulty. If you are the sea, then you should be having an orgasm right now. Sob, sob, sob. The undefeatable Paragon suddenly covered his face and cried bitterly like a woman. Yu Yang didn't expect the undefeatable Paragon to have such a move. You beat me up so badly. It hurts so much. Not only did you step on my face, you even stepped on my vitals. You pervert. The undefeatable Paragon cried bitterly. Tears flowed down his face, causing Yu Yang to be dumbfounded. Damn it. Don't tell me you're going to use your ultimate move of crying, throwing a tantrum, and trying to hang yourself? He's indeed a sissy. He's already crying before the fight even started. Did this guy really obtain 99,999 victories? Suddenly, the undefeatable Paragon stopped crying. His injuries were completely healed. His dim divine radiance instantly returned to its original state. Moreover, it emitted an even more dazzling brilliance. Yu Yang realized that this wasn't the Eastern's divine power substitution. Instead, it was the undefeatable Paragon's own divine power, which possessed such a powerful ability. The undefeatable Paragon supported himself with his hands and slowly stood up. He stood in front of Yu Yang. His handsome face no longer showed any signs of pain or contortion. His smile was like a spring breeze, pleasing to the heart and soul. I feel much better after crying. All the pressure has been released, as expected of Titan Yu. I'm very happy to have a strong opponent like you as a sacrifice for my 100,000 victories. All right, please allow me to introduce myself seriously once more. I'm known as the undefeatable Paragon. As one of the 3 elders of the Central Shrine, I once had a name in the upper heaven realm. That name was 100 Transformations. 100 Transformations? Yu Yang frowned. I, who had transformed into the ocean, failed. I admit that your moon divine power is indeed the nemesis of the ocean's tidal divine power. However, do you know why I'm called the undefeatable Paragon? That's because not only do I have the undefeatable talent, I also have the 100 Transformations divine power. My tidal divine power has been restrained. It doesn't matter. The me standing in front of you is no longer the ocean, but the clouds and mist. The undefeatable Paragon stretched out his hand and pointed at the sky. Yu Yang raised his head. He realized that the bright moon that had risen up in the sky had been gradually obscured by the clouds and mist that had appeared out of nowhere. It dimmed and eventually disappeared completely, leaving only a bit of moonlight shining through the deep layers of clouds. The undefeatable Paragon raised his head and looked in Yu Yang's direction. He smiled warmly and said, "Come, don't you want to slap my face? Try and slap me again." Asking for a slap? That's easy. Yu Yang waved his hand without hesitation and slapped the undefeatable Paragon hard. However, Yu Yang's palm slashed through the air. It was as if it was from another dimension. It slid past the undefeatable Paragon's handsome face and didn't hit anything. Back then, Princess Starlight was the same as you. Her innate talent and attributes completely restrained my ocean. Just like you, she beat me up badly. However, just like you now, she was restrained by my clouds and mist. Under my clouds and mist, her starlight lost its luster and couldn't display its might anymore. She couldn't even display 1% of her power. Ha ha! Guess what happened to you? Won't you make her even more miserable? The undefeatable Paragon looked at Yu Yang with a smile. So that's what happened back then. Yu Yang finally understood. Titan you, do you think that I, the undefeatable Paragon who was 100,000 victories, was an idiot? That I was an incompetent person? That I relied on loopholes to obtain the title of undefeatable Paragon? If that's the case, why was I able to sit in the second seat of the 3 great elders of the Central Shrine? In the Central Shrine, other than that martial arts madman Tianyu and that immovable Paragon, who else could be a match for me? Captain? Invincible? Dongfeng? Let me tell you the truth. If we don't count strategy and only count divine power, even if the 3 of them combined, they can't even compare to half of me. Otherwise, how can I, the undefeatable Paragon, live up to my name of undefeatable Paragon? The undefeatable Paragon looked at Yu Yang, as if he wanted to see a trace of fear and despair on his face. Unfortunately, Yu Yang's face was expressionless, not cooperating at all. The undefeatable Paragon laughed coldly in order to completely destroy the Yu clan's 3rd young master's confidence. Let me guess. You must be thinking of a way to not use the moon divine power. Instead, you want to change to another attribute. For example, using your most proficient attribute, fire. According to the information given to me by Dongfeng, your most proficient attribute is fire. In the end, you might be able to comprehend the flame divine power. However, no matter what you change to, be it wind, fire, water, or earth, it's impossible to reverse it. Because if you're the fire, I am the ocean. If you're the fire, I am the storm. If you are the wind, I am the tall mountain. If you are the earth, I am the meteor that destroys the earth. No matter what your divine power is, I have a corresponding attribute that can restrain you. Titan you, do you still think that my undefeatable inherent skills perception is wrong? The undefeatable Paragon laughed. He laughed very comfortably, very complacent. He really liked to see the calm expression on his enemy's face when they were in a hopeless situation. It wasn't just this Titan you in front of him. Almost all the losers, even if there weren't 90,000 of them, there were at least 70,000 to 80,000 who pretended to be calm. However, in the end, all of them were laughably defeated by his 100 transformations' divine power. Struggling was useless. Trying hard would only be a waste of energy. Come, Titan you. Just say whatever you want. Just treat it as your last words. The undefeatable Paragon decided to give Yu Yang a chance. Thank you very much. I just want to ask one last thing. If my divine power is fate, what kind of 100 transformations divine power can you use to deal with it? Yu Yang asked like a good student. Chapter 1326. Destiny? Is there such a divine power in this world? The invincible supremacy was dumbfounded. He had never imagined that Titan you would ask such a difficult question. Could it be that this brat really has such a special divine power? Impossible. Fate couldn't be controlled by others, and even a god-level expert could only forcefully free himself from it. He couldn't change the trajectory of other people's destinies. Is he trying to scare me? The invincible supremacy relaxed at this thought. He laughed heartily. All right, you have successfully amused me. Destiny? Haha, I really can't wait to see what the destiny divine power is like. Come, show it to me. Aren't you a peerless genius that only appears once in 10,000 years? Aren't you the first successor who saved the Tong Tian Tower from destruction? You must have the destiny divine power, right? You really scared me to death. Hurry up and use it to scare me. Look, my little heart is about to fly out of my body. Holding his stomach, laughing loudly, laughing louder and louder. It got out of hand. The invincible supremacy laughed so hard that tears were flowing out his eyes. Yu Yang did not say anything. He only took out his sword, and the invincible supremacy's laughter was as sharp as a knife. No, that's impossible. Although this is a space-time maze, it has already merged with the laws of the chessboard world. You can't use treasures. This sword is fake. It's definitely fake. The invincible supremacy felt that Yu Yang was using some kind of illusion technique, just like the moon in the sky. He was trying to deceive his eyes. Yu Yang had heard this saying before: never take an idiot seriously, because he will drag your intelligence down to the same level, and then use his rich experience to defeat you. Sword. It was created by Yu Yang, personally bearing part of the Destiny divine power. It was one of the 9 weapons of Destiny, the Sword of Destiny. The Sword of Fate is the head of the 9 weapons of fate. It is in charge of justice and judgment. It will judge all evil, including its creator and wielder. Yu Yang, who had never been a good boy, didn't feel good holding the Sword of Fate. After all, there were too many evil thoughts in his mind. If he dared to fantasize even a little while holding the Sword of Fate, the Sword of Fate would unceremoniously use the power of fate to cleanse his desires, purifying his master. He held the sword carefully. Yu Yang kept imagining himself to be an old monk with a heart like a withered tree, unperturbed, a vegetarian for hundreds of years who had never killed anyone. If he thought of the old monk normally, he would definitely expand his imagination, stretch out words like Shakespeare. Now, he didn't dare. At this moment, he had to be an obedient child. Otherwise, the Sword of Fate would unleash its power and tell him how important it was to be a good child. If he had something good in his hands, he would definitely share it with others. Yu Yang, who had always been a compassionate person, immediately took out the Sword of Fate and gave it to the undefeatable Supreme Elder, who was said to be undefeatable, as a gift for their first meeting. Long live Demacia! Yu Yang, who thought that he was the idiot with the sword in his hand, leapt up high and raised the Sword of Fate in his hand. Then he charged towards the sky, piercing through the sky. Then he reversed the direction of the sword and nailed it firmly onto the undefeatable Ji Zun's head. Of course, he didn't need to do this, because no one, not even a god tier, could escape from the power of fate. This is... The invincible Ji Zun was shocked. Such a terrifying, huge sword pierced down. He thought that he would be in so much pain that he wished he was dead. Who knew? There wasn't even a single wound on his body. The invincible Ji Zun opened his hands and looked at them. He realized that there wasn't a single wound on his body. Could it really be a fake image that Titan you made to scare him? If he had even a little bit of divine power, it would be impossible for him to not feel anything. The only explanation was that it was fake. You want to scare me with a fake sword? Do you know how the challenger who tried to trick me with illusions before you died? I humiliated him to death. I used 3,600 different methods to destroy his body and mind, allowing him to be completely unobstructed from inside out. Because I exploded him 1,000 times, it felt so good. Titan Yu, it's your turn. Just as the invincible Ji Zun was fantasizing about how to deal with Yu Yang, he realized that there was something strange on top of his head, as if something was forcefully squeezing through the cracks in his skull. He grabbed with his hand, but he didn't touch anything. He was so angry that he thought it was Yu Yang's doing. Titan Yu, do you think that you can scare me with such a weak attack? What a joke. Let me teach you what a cruel blow is. I want to kill you 1,000 times, and every time you are about to die, I will revive you. And then... The invincible Ji Zun didn't finish cursing, but he couldn't make any sound. He felt a strange pain. His brain seemed to have been opened by something. Whether it was the evil thoughts of the past or the present, they were all released. They surged out from his enlightened brain, like ants in the face of a flood. A sword appeared in his soul. It was impossible to see what it looked like, but it grew 1,000,000 times bigger in the evil thoughts. Then it pierced through his soul, into his body, and out of the void. It stabbed into his head. That kind of pain was really... The invincible Ji Zun felt that even if all the pain he had suffered in his life was multiplied by 100, it wouldn't be even 1,000th of this pain. He couldn't use his divine power to defend himself, nor could he escape. It attacked his soul, cleansing it from the inside out like a flood. When it encountered any evil thoughts or memories, its power would multiply, and it would pierce through his body with an unstoppable force, making his soul and body suffer this kind of judgment together. The invincible Ji Zun's tears, snot, and saliva flowed out. This kind of pain was 1,000,000 times more painful than having a sharp sword stabbed into his brain. His soul was injured, and that kind of pain wasn't something his willpower could resist. Not to mention, there was also a kind of judgment power cleansing everything. Don't you feel very good? Look, you must have had an orgasm. Ah, you can even boast? I didn't expect you to have this kind of talent. Yu Yong looked at the invincible Ji Zun, who was vomiting blood crazily, and clapped his hands in schadenfreude. If the invincible Ji Zun could move now, he swore that he would use his teeth to bite this kid to death. Unfortunately, he couldn't even move a finger. There was no end to the judgment, and the power of the sword of fate wouldn't disappear until the judgment of evil was done. At this moment, Yu Yong smiled and held a divine weapon of fate. Aha, I thought I was a good kid, but who knew that you're even more obedient than me? All right, in order to praise you, I've decided to reward you with a little red flower. This is what you deserve. Don't stand on ceremony. The Whip of Fate. It was also formed by the power of fate that Yu Yong had personally endured. It was one of the 9 weapons of fate, and its main purpose was to punish sins. Unlike the Sword of Fate, the Sword of Fate, which focused on justice and judgment, would usually not kill the judge. Most of the time, it would purge the judge into an idiot. If that was not enough, it would continue to purge the judge for an endless amount of time until the target's soul was cleansed into a blank sheet of paper. The Whip of Fate was different. The Whip of Fate punished both the body and the soul. Once it started to punish, all evil would be destroyed into nothingness. Whether the remaining part was dead or alive, it was not under its control. You've defeated more than 99,000 opponents. I don't believe that you're a good person. Yu Yong raised the Whip of Fate and swung it lightly. The invincible Ji Zun, who was being cleansed by the Sword of Fate, screamed in pain. It didn't last longer than the Sword of Fate. But in terms of pain, the punishment from the Whip of Fate was clearly better. Every time Yu Yong lashed out with the whip, the Paragon Undefeatable's body would crumble a little. As long as Yu Yong willed it, he could swing the whip a few thousand times. No matter how powerful the Paragon Undefeatable's God Force was, he would still be reduced to a pile of minced meat. As for his soul, it would most likely be reduced to nothingness. After all the bad things the Paragon Undefeatable had done in his life, it was almost impossible for him to have a good ending. How can you do this? Suddenly, someone behind Yu Yong criticized sternly, "Stop right now." Yu Yong turned around and realized that the person who came was actually the Night Empress with her starlight domain. As for Yu Yang's action of whipping people, Yu Yong was infuriated. The Night Empress was very unhappy. This was especially so since the target was the undefeatable sovereign, which made her oppose it from the bottom of her heart. How can you let him off so easily? Have you forgotten that he killed the Starlight Princess and almost destroyed our Heaven Stairway clan? If you kill him just like that, wouldn't our years of hatred and years of bitter waiting be wasted? As for the Night Empress criticism, Yu Yong hurriedly apologized. Yes. I was just having fun and almost forgot about these things. When Yu Yong saw that the Night Empress didn't seem to be angry anymore, he hurriedly offered up the Whip of Fate in his hand and gestured for the Night Empress to do the same. You try it too. It's fine. This guy has a lot of HP and can take a beating. With his God Force and realm, I reckon that even if I hang him up and beat him for 3 days and 3 nights, he should still be able to take it. This is the famous Paragon Undefeatable, ranked at least 3rd in the central shrine in the Heaven Realm. He is known as the Undefeatable Sovereign. It's fine. You try it too. It should feel good. After the Night Empress tried a dozen whips, she felt a little better. However, she was still a little worried. It's too boring to kill him just like that. Can't you think of some other way? When Yu Yong heard this, he felt a headache coming on. Girls, torturing people was an art. It was something that was very difficult to do well. How could there be such a good thing in order to let oneself feel comfortable and satisfied, and at the same time, let the guy who was being tortured live 100 years? Can't you just put up with it and use this Whip of Fate to casually whip him until he's skinny and can't even wrap his bones? For the undefeatable sovereign, Other than using the whip to whip him, it would be a piece of cake to use tiger stool and chili oil. Who knows, he might even enjoy it. I think I saw the mark of the god's wife on the forehead of Ji-Zun's guardian beast. The Night Empress, whose whole body was hidden in the starlight, seemed to be recalling an important point. It's just an illusion. You didn't see anything. Yu Yang sweated profusely. If the Night Empress complained to Ji-Zun, he would probably be finished. His mind spun rapidly, and an idea flashed through his mind like lightning. He quickly put the ring of fate on the Night Empress' slender finger. Thinking about it, maybe he felt that he didn't have enough power to bribe her, so he put the staff of fate in her hand. I know and understand your wish. You want to take revenge for Princess Starlight. I support this 100%. Look at this staff of fate. As long as you have it in your hand, you can fight however you want. It is in charge of life. It can completely control life. Together with this ring of fate that is in charge of free will, without your permission, he won't be able to die even if he wants to. The Night Empress was very satisfied. As expected, he did something bad while everyone was still asleep. Otherwise, how could he be so obedient? Forget it. I'll pretend I didn't see anything. I'll just borrow 2 divine weapons of destiny for the time being. You should take the Sword of Destiny and the Whip of Destiny with you. I reckon that the immovable sovereign is waiting ahead to scheme against you. I can't beat that old fellow, so you'll have to work hard. Yu Yang looked at the Night Empress. The current him could clearly see through the starlight domain and see the Night Empress' true appearance hidden in the starlight. He could even see her beautiful, snow-white body under the thin veil. But he pretended that he didn't see anything. Just like usual, he calmly retracted his almost completely transparent gaze and waved his hand. Then be careful. This fellow is really strong. If you really can't do it, you can call for help. Back then, the 3 of them didn't even blush when they surrounded Princess Starlight. So you don't have to be polite with him. You should take care of yourself first. The Night Empress sent Yu Yang away with a meteor teleportation. When Yu Yang completely disappeared into the horizon, she, who was hidden in the starlight, shyly stamped her foot. This brat must have seen it. Pervert, he actually pretended to be dumb even after seeing it. If I didn't feel his heartbeat increase, I wouldn't have known that he could see through the domain. Why were you in such a hurry, rushing over the moment you woke up? In the end, you let this brat take advantage of you for nothing. This is so embarrassing. Chapter 13:27. Using 10 days to pass through 1,000 individual worlds that were constantly changing their entrances and exits, finding the East? It looked simple on the surface, but in fact, this was a task that no one could complete alone. Yu Yang discovered that this space-time labyrinth that connected various individual worlds was changing every minute or even every second. The changes were so mysterious and fast that even he, who had the Heaven Eye's divine vision, could not easily see through it. Moreover, even if he had seen through the lost path and broke through the puzzle, he would still encounter various difficulties when he went to the next world and found the East that had already disappeared. For example, whenever he went to the next world, he would not know what kind of world he would step into or whether he would return to a world that he had already passed through. Each of the worlds here was different. There were endless changes and characteristics. What made Yu Yang feel even more inconceivable was that this space-time labyrinth could actually connect Heaven Realm, Heaven's Stairway, Tong Tian Tower, Soaring Dragon Continent, Central Shrine, God's Ruins, and other places and form a whole. This was too inconceivable. If he did not see it with his own eyes, Yu Yang would not dare to believe that this was a fact. Yu Yang moved forward at his fastest speed. After passing through more than 10 worlds, he was surprised to find that he had returned to the starting point. No, to be precise, this was not the starting point, but the place that Yu Yang had walked through before, the Gate of Heaven Realm. At this time, the Gate of Heaven Realm looked exceptionally calm. There was no battle, and no one was guarding it. The captain who was originally guarding here, there was no trace of him. What was even more strange was that Yi Kong, Fatty Hai, and the others who came to help were also nowhere to be seen. There was only the door that Yu Yang had opened, standing alone in the open space in front of the gate of Heaven Realm. If it was not for its existence, Yu Yang would not be able to confirm that he had been here before, and would suspect that this was the gate of Heaven Realm from another space-time. The door that Yu Yang had opened was still there, but everyone had disappeared. Fatty Hai, Yi Kong, and the other reinforcements had all disappeared without a trace. There were also no traces of battle on the ground. This was probably the scariest part of this space-time labyrinth. Not only space, but even time is a part of the maze. Yu Yang reached out and carefully sensed the door that he had opened. He was 100% the creator of the Gates of Wonders. There was no possibility of any transformation. Furthermore, this divine power was fused with the will of a supreme being. It was not something that could be negated by any power. Therefore, this door still existed and was not affected by time and space. However, the space-time labyrinth had quietly erased other traces. Yu Yang was unable to sense the existence of Fatty Hai and the others in the world of the Heaven Realm Gate. However, through the door, he could know that Fatty Hai, Yi Kong, and the others had already led their troops into this world. Furthermore, they had sent out their entire army. Even the clown fishmen and other sea clan servants who had almost no fighting power were no exception. At least 100,000 reinforcements had entered this world through the door. But now, not a single trace was left. One must know. For example, Sky Execution and the others who already had the power of a godhead, their aura, battle traces, and marks that were deliberately left behind could all be completely erased. Yu Yang couldn't help but sigh in agreement. This space-time labyrinth was really awesome. If this continues, let alone 10 days, even if it was a year, or even 100 years, we might not be able to find the East. Yu Yang frowned tightly. Just as he was thinking hard, there was a mysterious flash of light in the Heaven Realm Gate. Red and a man appeared in front of him together. The two of them were surprised and happy to meet Yu Yang here. It's true. That's great. Red's excited little face was shining. She flew into Yu Yang's arms like a swallow returning to the forest. A man, who was a step slower, also ran over happily. She opened her arms and hugged Yu Yang from behind, together with Red. What's wrong with you guys? Yu Yang felt that something was wrong. We met an enemy on the way. That guy even tried to change into your appearance to attack us. He's too hateful. Red told Yu Yang what had happened before. Only then did he know that they met a god-level ranker from the central shrine camp in the Heaven Realm. That guy changed into his appearance, thinking that he could deceive Red and Aman, who were guardian war beasts. In the end, he was seen through on the spot, and a long chase broke out. Red and Aman chased him all the way to this Heaven Realm Gate and met the Real Yu Yang. Only then did they realize that even if they entered a different world gate a second later, the destination would be completely different and deviated. Surprisingly, maybe it was because the two of them had a tacit understanding, but their actions were as one. Before this, they had passed through several unit worlds, but they had never been separated. Yu Yang felt that he seemed to have grasped a trace of secret, but he couldn't grasp the general direction of this thought. There was only a faint flash. Who else has woken up? Yu Yang now had millions of telepathic senses at the same time. Because he hadn't completely grasped divine power, and he hadn't truly comprehended the divine supreme realm and Godhead, he didn't dare to easily connect his mind with everyone. He was afraid that doing so would cause unpredictable harm or influence to everyone. When we woke up, Xiaonu, Bao-Er, and the others had already woken up. However, the few mistresses were still in a deep sleep. Red indicated that she and Aman had also just woken up. They had only fought once, and it was a chase after seeing through the enemy. Although I can return to the Holy Grimoire world through the gate, I suspect that the enemy is secretly spying on us. So, I decided not to go back for the time being. You guys go back and take a look. If Wu Xia and the others have woken up, then tell them to come immediately. I will wait for you here. If Wu Xia and the others haven't woken up yet, you can also ask Sister Yu, and An, or Lu Yi to come. I need their talent to verify something. Yu Yang thought for a while, and then handed the hammer of fate that controlled the power of heaven and earth to Aman If you pass through this gate and don't return to our home, then use this to smash all the enemies you meet on the way. Remember, as long as you hold the hammer in your hand, you have endless power. Red and Man listened to the instructions and didn't dare to be careless. The two held hands and carefully passed through the strange gate. In the next second, their figures teleported and disappeared. Yu Yang's face immediately became angry, because he sensed that Red and Man didn't return to the grimoire world in the holy grimoire as he had imagined. Instead, they were sent to another unit world by the space-time maze. Sure enough, the enemy had been watching him, and this space-time maze was also under their control. They couldn't change the strange gate that they had created with their divine power and wisdom, but they, who had the key to the space-time maze, could control everything inside. Now, the strange gate had become a one-way passage that could only be exited from inside, but could not be re-entered. Moreover, Yu Yang believed that even if Shui Wuxia and Princess Sisai came out of the gate, they wouldn't appear beside him. The enemy would definitely transfer them to another space-time first. Is it you? Is it you who is playing tricks? Immovable sovereign. Yu Yang looked up to the sky and said in a deep voice like thunder. There was no response from the sky at all. However, Yu Yang sensed that there was some kind of mysterious spying that he couldn't detect before, and it disappeared without a sound. Maybe it was because they were worried about Yu Yang's counterattack, or maybe it was because of the confusion, or maybe it was because of other reasons. The enemy temporarily left. They gave up on the spying that had always been there and followed them like a shadow. Yu Yang was in the front, back, left, and right of the first strange gate. He continued to create 4 strange gates. 5 of them stood together. The surface of the gate was painted with ancient runes that only Yu Yang, Wu Xia, Wu Hen, and Fallen Flowers understood. There was always only one. Chapter 1328. Heaven Realm Gate. Yu Yang had already left. No one knew which unit world he had been teleported to. The strange doors were still standing in the middle. On every door, there were different ancient runes. They shone with different radiance and symbolized different meanings. When Yu Yang disappeared, a shadow quietly appeared beside the 5 strange doors. It observed them carefully and pondered deeply, trying to guess the true meaning of the ancient runes. Unfortunately, no matter how much the shadow looked or guessed, it couldn't figure out what the truth behind it was. Maybe it was out of curiosity. In the end, the shadow chose to continue peeping. Gradually, its body became transparent like air. Then it disappeared in an instant, somewhere in the Heaven Realm Gate. The Heaven Realm Gate that no one had teleported to before, suddenly someone else came in. At this time, the person who came in was a fatty. According to the information in the shadow's hands, this fatty, who was known as the Meat Mountain Demon King, or extremely cheap fat demon, was Titan Yu's best teammate and also one of his loyal followers. This person's talent was not above others. He was definitely not a genius, but his training speed and realm. He was not below any genius in the world. Other than the unprecedented super abnormal Titan Yu, there were very few people who could be compared to this fatty. He was even in existence that countless geniuses and outstanding juniors in the Heaven Realm could only look up to. The most important point that was shown in the report was that this fatty's willpower was extraordinarily tenacious. It had never been heard of him collapsing in a battle. He was known for his thick skin. He was also very good at using superficial illusions to confuse his enemies. Pretending to be weak and weak to deceive his enemies was his most common trick. In private, no one would have thought that this wretched man who looked like a coward, a man who was afraid of death, would be a qualified martial artist who could not be swayed and could not be successfully roped in. Dong Feng had personally judged that this person must be eliminated. Otherwise, he would become a disaster in the future. If a blacklist was made based on the number of people killed, this man was called Haidefu. He could probably be ranked in the top 10 warriors of Tong Tian Tower. He was second only to Sky Execution, his teammate Yi Kong, his teacher Shui Dong Lu, and the even more powerful and talented Shui Tan Lang. I really didn't expect that fatty to have such a high ranking. The shadow could not figure it out. He had carefully observed the other party before and had always felt that this little fatty was incomparably mediocre. No matter what he did, it was ordinary and unremarkable. It was impossible for him to surpass his companions, especially Shui Tianlang, who was even more dazzling than a diamond. In fact, the shadow clone felt that, apart from looking like he deserved a beating and being slightly eye-catching, there was simply nothing good about this little fatty. But the East could never be wrong. In this world, anyone could make a mistake except for the East. The shadow firmly believed this. He could doubt anyone in the world, but he would never doubt the judgment of the East. There was nothing wrong with the East. In that case, the only possibility was that he had misjudged or missed something. Damn it, I'm the only one left now. I know it's all your tricks, otherwise it wouldn't be like this. Come out. I've already seen your little tail. Don't think that because this young master is afraid of you. You idiots, don't you know that I, Haidafu, am the #1 genius of Skysplit Tower? Come out and accept your death. Fatty Hai felt that something was wrong. He had just charged together with Yi Kong and the others, who knew that in less than a second, he would be the only one teleported here. Yi Kong, Shui Tianlang, and the others walked together. In an instant, they disappeared without a trace. If it wasn't for the enemy causing trouble behind the scenes, then there was really something wrong. Looking at Haida Fu's frightened, bear-like face, the shadow was confused again. If it wasn't for Dong Fang's affirmation, the shadow would have thought that the person who commented on this idiotic fatty was blind. No matter how he looked at it, this Haida Fu was a trash existence. I can't see through him. Forget it, the main target now is not him. The shadow observed for a long time and finally could not stand the extreme contrast between what he saw and what he felt. He waved his hand. Haidafu, who was scared half to death, had successfully escaped from the Heaven Realm Gate. Immediately after, he observed Yi Kong, Shui Tianlang, Prince of Tianluo, and other important targets in the intelligence report. He found that these young people were exactly the same as the East's previous evaluation. They were indeed very unique or extremely outstanding geniuses. Other than Haidafu, there was no other abnormality. This kind of discovery made the shadow very puzzled and troubled. Was Haidafu really pretending to be stupid and pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? Or was there another Haidafu? Could there be two of them and people confuse them together? Looking at the Haidafu just now, the shadow could not imagine that this kind of person was the young Master Hai, that the East's evaluation was extremely high. I'll let go for now. Although Haidafu's evaluation is not bad, he is not my most important target. The shadow thought for a long time, but could not understand. Thus, he threw away this doubt and decided to carry out the initial plan. According to the East's instructions, he would stay here and wait for the target to appear. Haidafu, no matter if he was strong or weak, it didn't matter if he was left to be killed in the future. But that target must be killed first. He must be eliminated successfully before Titan Yu was killed. Otherwise, this space-time labyrinth that no one had been able to break since the ancient times could be broken, because that was a name that even the East was afraid of, Shui Wuxia. The shadow had never heard of this name before, but after the East said one sentence, he no longer had any doubts, because the East said that it was an extraordinary woman who had inherited the legacy of the goddess of wisdom. He definitely could not let this Shui Wuxia, who was said to be the biggest helper of Titan Yu's life, enter the space-time labyrinth. Once discovered, he must use the fastest speed and the greatest strength to kill her. The door to heaven. There's a rune imprint left by that bad guy. From the strange door, a few women came out. Some are holding swords, some are holding spears. Some are hugging a peepa. Some had a little fox as a pet. Some had a panda daughter. And some even had a group of spiders, but their original body was a hornless dragon. There were all kinds of them, but the target that the shadow was waiting for, Shui Wuxia. According to the information, that Shui Wuxia liked to read books. Whether she was in battle or not, she would always have a book of truth. But among the few women that appeared, none of them were her. Not to mention Shui Wuxia. Even the other woman who looked very similar to her, who was also known for her intelligence, Shui Wuhin, Shui Wuxia's cousin, did not appear. Strange, she should be the first to come out to help. Why is she nowhere to be seen? Could it be that there is someone in this world who could see through the East labyrinth before entering the trap? No, impossible. The shadow felt that the most likely explanation was that when Shui Wuxia was assisting Titan Yu in breaking through to the Holy Supreme Martial Artist realm, she was unable to resist the strong power of destiny and died prematurely. Without her dedication, Titan Yu would not have been able to live until now. Right? That must be it. But these women in front of him did not seem to be sad. Maybe they were rivals in love. Their biggest rival in love, Shui Wuxia, had died. It was reasonable for them to be so happy. The shadow tried to comfort himself. Women were always full of jealousy. Even if they were smiling on the surface, they would secretly want to get rid of them. After a while, another group of women came out. There was still no sign of Shui Wuxia. Even the one who was said to be Shui Wuxia's biggest rival in love, the Princess Sisai who carried a divine sword on her back, had already left for a long time. Shui Wuxia. There was still no sign of her. Could it be that the little girl that even the East was deeply afraid of was already dead? Was she really dead? After waiting for 3 hours, the shadow, who felt that his body was about to stiffen, finally gave up on the idea of ambushing the target. Shui Wuxia was most likely dead. Even if she was not dead, she was definitely heavily injured and was currently recuperating, unable to participate in the battle. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to not take any action until now. One must know, the earliest group of girls had already set off for 3 hours. Even Princess Sisai had set off for 2 hours. So disappointing, I thought that I could ambush the most valuable target. The shadow shook his head regretfully. He took out an item from his bosom, the shape of an orb. It rushed towards the Heaven Realm Gate and suddenly flashed. The Heaven Realm Gate emitted an intense light, and the endless space-time vortex rotated crazily. All the ants who thought that you have successfully left the Heaven Realm Gate, come back. You will never think that as long as you have my return orb, no matter where you are, you will be pulled back to this world. Moreover, you will be under my control. The shadow laughed out loud. Tremble and struggle helplessly. Don't mention the space-time maze of 1,000-unit worlds. Even if it is a single-unit world of the Heaven Realm Gate, you will never be able to cross it. Now, all of you, return to your original point. Return to my space-time and world. This is my will. Although I really don't want to praise an enemy, you can use your own talent to transform into a treasure, avoid the rules of the chessboard, and combine it with your own will and the Heaven Realm Gate to reverse the space-time maze. In this space-time maze, you could deceive your opponent with fake and real. I have to say, this is really a genius's wonderful idea. Suddenly, behind the shadow, there was a gentle voice that sounded like the sound of nature. When the shadow heard it, his body shook violently. He never dreamed that there would be an enemy hiding behind him without him noticing. It's you? Shui Wuxia. The shadow turned his head and discovered that there was an extra person in front of him. It was Shui Wuxia, whom he had been waiting for a long time, but had always mistakenly thought that she had already been sacrificed. You want to ambush me? If it is possible, I want to give you a piece of advice. If the information that you have gathered is a little more detailed, then maybe you will know that the person who has the Book of Truth will never let the enemy sneak attack him. I won't brag about my telepathy. Just by combining my talent, domain, holy book, and wisdom inheritance, it is impossible for me to not react when someone comes to bully me. Maybe Dong Fong forgot to mention it, or maybe he deliberately didn't mention it and has other plans. But here I really want to tell you that if I need to, I can actually communicate with my fiancé, who is also the Titan you that you all speak of anytime and anywhere. Do you think that a mere space-time maze can stop the two of us from communicating with each other? Not to mention that our fates are tied together. Any slight tremble, any slight movement, I will feel it. Pitiful you. You're just a chess piece that Dongfang is trying to interfere with us. Shui Wuxia smiled. The shadow in front of her didn't seem to be a god-level expert, but a pitiful little thief that was being used by others. Dongfang will definitely not do that. I believe in him. As for you, there is no use in quibbling. The shadow's eyes flashed, but he quickly regained his composure. It seems that you want to fight? Shui Wuxia sighed. My hands are very fast. I will kill you without any pain. The shadow had enough confidence in fighting. This is exactly what I wanted to say. After Shui Wuxia finished speaking, she slowly shook her head. Her lily-white hands are like how she usually read a book. In an incomparably elegant manner, she gently turned a page on the holy book that had completely fused with the book of truth. Chapter 1329. The Gate of Heaven. On the battlefield, divine light shone brightly, splashing in all directions as if the sun had shattered. Wherever the divine light touched, everything collapsed. At this moment, from the whirlpool of the Heaven Realm Gate, two shadows quietly slid out. They seemed to belong to the same camp as the previous shadow, but these two shadows did not immediately attack. Instead, they chose to watch from the sidelines, leisurely and contentedly watching the battle. How many seconds do you think Duan Lu will need to end the battle? The shadow on the left asked. Well, 100 seconds, maybe more. The shadow on the right estimated. I think at most 30 seconds. The shadow on the left said. Impossible. The shadow on the right immediately denied. Why don't we make a bet? Let's bet. While the two shadows were leisurely making a bet on the battlefield, as if they heard the bet or sensed the arrival of their teammates, a new round of attacks broke out in the midst of the fierce battle. It was as terrifying as the heavenly fire burning the plains, causing the sky to collapse and the earth to crack. Rays of divine light cut through the space like swords. If it weren't for the two shadows supporting the gate of the heaven with their divine power to protect it, the gate of the heaven that had existed since ancient times would have been severely damaged to the point where it couldn't be repaired. The last wave of the divine power whirlpool engulfed the entire battle space. Even the sound couldn't escape. It disappeared little by little in the black, hole-like whirlpool. Only the divine light shone for a long time. The shadows watching the battle had to cover their eyes with their hands and use their divine power to barely resist this blinding light. It's over. 20 seconds. I won. The shadow on the left was particularly happy when he saw this result. Damn it, the warriors of Tong Tian Tower are too weak. They even said that it was the inheritance of the goddess of wisdom, but they won without even using their ultimate moves. The shadow on the right was indignant. He felt that he had been deceived by the information from the east. At least, he had been misled. The warriors of Tong Tian Tower were not as powerful as they had imagined, whether it was the inheritance of the goddess of wisdom or self-enlightenment. The divine light on the battlefield gradually weakened. When their eyes adapted, the two shadows found that their companions who were fighting were walking towards them. The shadow on the left, who was in a good mood, couldn't help but tease. How is it? Don't you feel a sense of accomplishment killing Shui Wuxia? A target that even the East is afraid of? The shadow on the right snorted unhappily. What's the big deal about killing a junior? She's just a little girl who hasn't stopped drinking milk. I don't know what the East is doing. They actually want us to kill such a small target. It's so boring. Can't they find us a target that's truly valuable? I've been waiting for so long that my hands are itching, but there isn't even a single person who can fight. Even the Titan you that they've boasted about couldn't even withstand 2 moves before fleeing. Could it be that Tong Tian Tower's specialty is to produce weaklings? The shadow on the left laughed heartily. No, I like an easy life. The easier the better. Challenging the strong is boring. It's more exciting to kill rookies. The fighting shadow did not utter a single word. He just walked forward slowly. Perhaps it was because they had discovered that the situation wasn't quite right. The two shadows' leisurely expression suddenly turned into one of shock. Hey, Duan Lu, you're not injured, are you? A little girl like that actually injured you? Are you kidding me? Don't pretend. You want to scare us, don't you? I've already seen through you. Haha, I have to say, Duan Lu, you're very good at pretending. I almost believed you. But do you think I'll be fooled? Impossible. The figure of the fighting shadow was getting closer and closer, but his footsteps were getting slower and slower. He looked very much like a martial artist who was seriously injured, just for the obsession in his heart. Only then did he insist on returning. Regarding this strange situation, the two shadows first looked at each other in surprise and then burst into laughter. They laughed so hard that their eyes were splashing. Your acting is too good. Oh no, I'm going to die from laughing. My stomach hurts. I say, Duan Lu, you're too talented in acting. If we didn't know that you'd be fine, we might have been fooled by you. Okay, you don't need to pretend anymore. We've already seen through you. Why are you still pretending? The fighting shadow turned a deaf ear to them and continued to move forward. Step by step, he walked in front of his two companions in an unusually heavy manner. Suddenly, he couldn't hold on any longer. With a bang, he fell on the rock surface, which had been shattered into pieces by the divine power, and a burst of smoke and dust splashed. The two shadows could no longer keep calm at this time. They hurriedly raised their divine power shields to prevent any possibility of a sneak attack. They were deeply vigilant. The shadow on the left tentatively took 2 steps forward and shouted at his companion who had fallen into the mud. Duan Lu, we've already seen through your little trick. You can't deceive us. Get up immediately. It doesn't look like he's pretending. Is Duan Lu really defeated? The shadow on the right was a little skeptical. How is it possible? The 3 of us are immortal divine level experts, especially Duan Lu. His returning godhead can make everything go back to normal. Not to mention minor injuries. Even a fatal blow can be immediately restored to its original state. The shadow on the left didn't believe it at all. Then tell me, what the hell is going on? Isn't the one who was defeated Shui Wuxia? I clearly saw it. The shadow on the right felt incredible. Yes, I just saw with my own eyes that Duan Lu used the river severing resonance to kill the enemy. The shadow on the left was also confused. Then how could Duan Lu be seriously injured and fallen to the ground now? The shadow on the right was about to go crazy because of this infinitely strange scene in front of him. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he couldn't believe that this would be the truth. Or he still suspected that this was his teammate who was joking with him. In the next second, this hateful guy would use the divine personality to restore everything to the original state. Let me tell you the answer. A sound of nature. From afar, the sound drifted into the eardrums of the two shadows. In the distant sky, an indescribably perfect and beautiful figure quietly emerged under the illumination of the divine light. She was walking gracefully towards them. Before she arrived, the divine light of wisdom, which was exuding supreme power, had already filled the whole world. The comrade who was lying on the ground on one side and the enemy who was slowly descending with a grimoire on the other side formed a clear visual impact. The shock was no less than an earthquake. In the hearts of the two shadows, it formed an impact that was hard to calm down. Without waiting for Shui Wuxia to speak again, the shadow on the left had already screamed, "This is fake, impossible. It's impossible for Duan Lu, who has the divine personality of divine personality, to fall to the ground. Any injury, any blow, will not stay on his body even for a minute or a second. Not to mention you, even an ancient god who is 100 times, 1,000 times, or 10,000 times stronger than you cannot kill Duan Lu. The only thing that can make him afraid is the Nirvana sealing god seal. It's not like what you're doing now, using divine power to kill him. No, it's impossible. This is a fake illusion, an illusion created by you. Duan Lu is an existence that can't be killed at all." Shui Wuxia's jade-like fingers gently slid on the grimoire, as if she was making an important decision. However, her eyes didn't look at the enemy. It was as if the two shadows in front of her, these two equally powerful enemies, simply didn't exist. After a long time, she sighed slightly. "Perhaps the answer is a little cruel to you, but I still want to tell you the truth. In fact, not only him, but also you are all images of this space-time labyrinth. Let me put it this way. In one sentence, you don't exist." "What did you say?" The two shadows' complexion changed as they heard this. It was as if they had heard the most terrifying thing in the world. Their whole bodies trembled. "Whether it's Duan Lu or you've all died long ago. Pay attention, it's completely dead. It's not like the Nirvana sealing God seal from the black hole prison. Maybe it's the creator of this space-time labyrinth, or maybe it's someone else. I don't know which great god did it, but you've all been killed long ago. This is an indisputable fact. Because of the special reason of this space-time labyrinth, your peak state before your death has been perfectly copied. The value of your existence has also been changed by someone, and you've become the guardian of this space-time labyrinth. I believe that you've never realized why you've been trapped here forever. Shui Wuxia's words scared the wits out of the two shadows and made their minds go crazy. No, you're lying. We've been shuttling back and forth in different spaces every day. We've been living in different worlds with different people. We've been living wonderful lives every day. We're living divine-level experts. No, we haven't been killed. We're alive. We haven't died. The shadow on the right was about to go crazy. Every life in this world, even if it's a lowly life, has a past, a present, and a future. Shui Wuxia smiled. As for you, powerful divine-level experts, you don't have a past, and you don't have a future. Only the current. You hasn't left any trace in the heaven realm. We've never heard of your existence, and the heaven realm doesn't have any legends about you. This is because the history that belonged to you has long been annihilated. You're divine-level experts from tens of thousands of years ago, or even longer. The current heaven realm has already forgotten about you, so you don't have a past. And in my book of truth, you don't have a future either, not even for a second. You only have a present, a copied body, a copied memory, and a copied divine power. Maybe it's intentional by the creator of this space-time labyrinth, or maybe it's because of other reasons. In short, you're just an existence that's close to a real image in this space-time labyrinth, and you're not a living person. Oh no, the two shadows were in despair. Although they wanted to refute Shui Wuxia, their minds began to collapse. If she hadn't mentioned it, they would never have doubted this point. But after being reminded, a lot of horrible images immediately emerged in their minds, and then the whole world began to collapse. Shui Wuxia walked past the two shadows, who were kneeling on the ground in pain and despair. She seemed to let out a soft sigh. It was faintly discernible. It broke the hearts of the two shadows. Dongfang, you lied to us. Dongfang, why? Why didn't you tell us the truth? We trusted you like brothers. We're like brothers. Why did you lie to us? Also, Tianyu, everything is fake. We have no relatives, no friends, no everything in our lives. Everything is fake. Everything is a lie. Everything is nothingness. Dongfang, Tianyu, why did you do this? All these years, we've been living in your lies. You gone too far. Why did you do this? Why did you use us, who have died in battle? Why didn't you let us sleep in eternal sleep? Why did you use us? Why? No past, no future. You've used our obsessions. It's too much. We've lived for more than 10,000 years, but not a single day was real. Not a single thing really existed. The two shadows roared in pain. The shadow Duan Lu, who had fallen to the ground just now, stood up at this time, intact. He looked at his two teammates strangely. Zhifeng, Flaming Fire, what's wrong with you? Why did you go crazy all of a sudden? What we have to do now is to complete Dongfang's entrustment and kill Shui Wuxia, who has obtained the inheritance of the goddess of wisdom. Hey, what's with your expressions? Do you doubt Dongfang's words? The shadow on the left suddenly rushed over with tears streaming down his face and hugged him tightly. I understand. Now I finally understand. We're not brothers, not twin triplets, but the same person. Duan Lu, you don't have any return talent, and I can't be reborn. The reason why we're immortal is that we're simply illusions of nothingness. As soon as we fall, we'll automatically return to our original state. Sadly, we can't even rest in peace because we've been turned into puppets and tools by others. The shadow on the right also rushed over, opened its arms, and hugged the two shadows. That's right, I remember now. Our innate skill should be an afterimage. We are not the real one. The real me died a long time ago. We are just 3 afterimages left behind by the innate skill. Name, that my name? Ah, I seem to remember, oh my God. This is I also remember, and the situation when we were killed that year. Damn Tianyu, you're so vicious. Just as the three shadows cursed, the world of the gate of the heavenly realm suddenly collapsed silently. Between heaven and earth, everything was melting, loosening like sand, and then dissipating like smoke. The three extremely painful shadows, with their last curse and endless relief, gradually dissipated and turned into nothingness. Their existence was closely related to this world. When their will collapsed and their divine power was no longer supported, the whole world would change, or even cease to exist. The 10 worlds were all destroyed, and even the gate of the heavenly realm, like the moon in the water or the flower in the mirror, disappeared in a flash. Only the strange door left by Yu Yang remained. It stood eternally. Chapter 1330. Maybe not even a second, maybe thousands of years had passed, as if it had never been destroyed. The Heaven Realm Gate was reborn again. The whole world was like a sleeping giant waking up. The sky brightened, and the world returned to its original state. The space-time labyrinth was not easy to break. Even if Shui Wuxia used her wisdom and divine power to destroy it, it was restored in an instant. Moreover, it was as good as before. The whole world is destroyed. Can it still be restored? This labyrinth is really interesting. 2 women stood at the side of the door. One of them clapped her hands and laughed. There is no such thing as the Heaven Realm Gate. Jizun was completely unmoved. The other one was naturally her guardian beast, Jiaoyu Goddess, no, Phantom Moon Goddess, who had never appeared before. Different from Yu Yang thinking hard to find the answer. Different from Shui Wuxiao reading the Book of Truth to destroy the World Gate. Jizun used the most direct and violent method. Black pieces, one after another, appeared around her body. When there were 18 of them, they gradually arranged themselves to form an extremely mysterious and beautiful divine sense array. They expanded rapidly and were immediately compressed by Jizun's will. This was repeated for 10 times. The whole world, whether it was rocks, sand, air, or even light, could not escape the attraction of this divine sense array. It was more powerful than the terrifying black hole after the space was broken. It could devour everything. Jizun slowly stretched out her slender arm. She drew a beautiful circle in the air. It was as if there was an invisible giant hand grabbing towards the Heaven Realm Gate. Immediately after, it became huge and extremely fast speed, far exceeding the Heaven Realm Gate and expanding to the entire world. In the palm of this invisible hand, the world suddenly became smaller. Perhaps the seal of the Nirvana deification was like this. The whole world was completely wrapped in it. The Heaven Realm Gate was compressed to a size smaller than a marble. Under the dual effect of the divine sense array and Jizun's will, the world slowly entered it and became a part of a black piece, becoming 1/18 of the divine sense array. Success. Great success. The Phantom Moon Goddess, who was no different from Jizun in appearance and charm, clapped her hands and praised. Humph. Jizun gave her a cold look. I think little Yu Yang is quite pitiful. Please don't be angry anymore. The illusionary moon goddess obediently fawned on Jizun. She used her little fist to massage Jizun's shoulders. In front of Jizun, she was like a timid little sister. She didn't have the demeanor of the #1 goddess of Tongtian Tower at all. Her 2 little fingers touched each other cutely. I only let him succeed because I wasn't careful. You did it on purpose. Don't think that I don't know. The Jizun was very angry. But it felt really good, so I couldn't help it. The Phantom Moon Goddess wanted to explain weakly, but when Jizun glared at her, she was so scared that she curled up into a ball. The reality gate reappeared, and everything returned to normal. Jizun gently waved her jade-like hand. The second seal. Begin. After the 9th black piece became the inner world black piece that sealed the world gate, the world no longer recovered, and the world gate no longer reappeared. Other than the mystic door left behind by Yu Yang, which existed eternally, everything else in the area had been transformed into the void. Is the labyrinth going to be broken? It's not fun anymore. The Phantom Moon Goddess seemed like she had lost a very fun toy. This is just the beginning. Now, I announce that because a certain goddess who likes to play dumb has offended her superiors by using my image to seduce a certain bold junior and made a mess of things. Therefore, I hereby make the following punishment. A certain goddess will stay and deal with the big monster hiding at the back of the labyrinth alone. Jizun pointed her hand and put away the divine sense array that sealed the 9 inner worlds. I'll stay behind, what about you? The Phantom Moon Goddess was stunned. This place doesn't seem to be interesting anymore. I've decided to go to another battlefield that is more interesting. Jizun raised her small face. Her gaze seemed to be able to see through the void. That guy has lived for tens of thousands of years. His arms are already a few thousand meters long. It feels really dangerous. It's better to let Queen Vivian Leaf fight him. The Phantom Moon Goddess wanted to persuade Jizun to change her mind. It's not one old guy, it's 2. Jizun slightly muttered, maybe 3. We also have a silly demon dragon on our side. If the demon dragon heard what the Phantom Moon Goddess said, the bearded uncle would definitely cry bitterly. A guy who only knows how to fight with brute force is not reliable. I have to go and see for myself. Jizun had already made her decision, and no one could change her will. Moreover, the battle outside was more dangerous than the chaotic battle in the labyrinth world. Now, no one knew how the battle between the demon dragon, the peerless emperor, and the supreme heavenly chariot of the temple were. Were they evenly matched, or were their chrysanthemums broken? Based on the previous situation, the latter was very likely. Of course, if Queen Vivian Lee woke up, with her help, the possibility of Uncle Demon Dragon and the other party exploding each other was also very high. After all, the reputation of the conquering queen of the heavenly realm was not given in vain. Jizun disappeared in the void without a trace. The Phantom Moon Goddess, who was acting cute and trying to please Yu Yang, changed instantly and became excited. Aha! Little Yu Yang, I'm coming. She turned into a stream of light, 10,000 times colder than the sun, piercing through the darkness, and disappeared in a flash. When the 2 ladies were far away, in the void, a shadow slowly floated up like a piece of wood floating out of the water. Although it is a dimensional world, to be able to directly seal 9 of them at once, completely breaking the laws of the labyrinth, Dongfang was right. The human Jizun is really an opponent that cannot be underestimated. Unfortunately, the human Jizun is still too young. In front of the supreme heavenly chariot of the temple, she has no chance of turning the tables. Behind the shadow, there was a light flickering like a firefly. The Phantom Moon Goddess reappeared and laughed like a bell. You must be the immovable Jizun who has thousands of incarnations and is as immovable as a mountain, right? What an amazing talent. Your real body is as immovable as a mountain, but you have countless shadow incarnations of the same strength as you. You can fly in the sky and burrow into the ground to support your real body. You have the complete control of the battle. The shadow was slightly startled and immediately shook his head. It's an incarnation, not a clone. What's the difference between the 2? The Phantom Moon Goddess was curious. There's a big difference. The shadow's true appearance gradually appeared, turning into a white-haired old man with a kind face. An incarnation can transform into anything, but a clone can't. The guardian beast of the human Jizun could actually level up to become a god. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't dare to believe that there was actually someone in the lower realm Tong Tian Tower who could raise a beast to such a level. Amazing, truly amazing. Wait till I capture you and wrap you up as a gift for little Yu Yang. You will feel even more amazing then. The Phantom Moon Goddess laughed. If I was a clone, your actions would naturally be a huge blow to me. But I'm just an incarnation of the shadow. There's no meaning in capturing me. I'm just a 1 in 10,000 of my real body's incarnations. You'll have to waste your energy, but in the end, you'll end up empty-handed. The old man laughed out loud. Capturing an incarnation like you shouldn't take much effort. The Phantom Moon Goddess didn't care. Try it. The old man made an estimation. Without 3 days and 3 nights with your current god realm, you wouldn't be able to do more. Ha! What I say, just a moment is enough. The phantom moon goddess imitated Yu Yang's hand gesture and snapped her fingers. Behind her, a bright moon rose. It was incomparably bright, its radiance illuminating the entire void, reaching everywhere and everywhere. The old man bathed in the moonlight. Suddenly, his entire body solidified like a stone. At first, he could still struggle a little, but very quickly, he couldn't even blink his eyes. The phantom moon goddess smiled indifferently. Killing or capturing an incarnation with the support of a real body is of course difficult, but I don't need to do that. As long as my moonlight is eternal, then everything will be eternal. Just stay here quietly and reflect on yourself. Do you want me to give you a sincere advice? Don't ever treat others as fools. If you really do that, it will only show that your intelligence is a problem. You don't understand this, right? When you meet little Yu Yang, I believe he will explain it to you. The bright moon hung high in the sky. Everything was eternal. The old man stood still like a stone. After an unknown amount of time, a shadow appeared from the old man's shadow. It was not tainted by any light at all. He stretched out his black hand, ready to bring the fossilized old man out of the world of the eternal moonlight of the void. The shadow's hand touched the old man's stone body lightly. Before he could gather his divine power, the old man's chest had already been penetrated by thousands of moonlight rays. It was like a waterless surface, shining directly on the shadow's body. The shadow instantly turned stiff like a stone. Damn it, this isn't petrification. This is a law that can stop time and space. The shadow struggled to say, I hope I'm the last fool. Unfortunately, his wish was not fulfilled. After an unknown amount of time, a third shadow appeared from the shadows of the two people. This shadow was very vigilant. Once he realized something was wrong, he immediately escaped. He wanted to merge into the shadows and leave the void. However, a ray of moonlight appeared out of nowhere. It shone brightly from below him and made his entire head transparent. There was no body, only a fossilized head. It stopped alone in the eternal moonlight of the broken void. In another world, Dong Fong and an old man were sitting cross-legged in the space of the ancient tree. A headless body fell to the ground with a thud. Dong Fong looked at the corpse, then looked at the old man opposite him. He could not say a word. The skinny old man opposite him was quite open-minded. There was even a smile on his lips. Not bad. Now it's getting interesting. In the sky above their heads, two golden giants that were more than 10,000 meters tall were fighting each other. They were fighting fiercely, and the mountains and rivers were shattered. If it were not for the fact that the two worlds were completely different, Dong Fong and the old man space of the ancient tree would have been smashed into pieces by this terrifying and barbaric fight. The image flashed. The fight between the 10,000 meters tall golden giants disappeared. Yu Yang's figure suddenly appeared in the sky. What is this brat thinking? Dong Fong was a little confused now. He really could not understand. It would be fine if he was like a normal person, but this Yu clan's third young master had clearly seen through the mysteries of the labyrinth world. He had even found the labyrinth door and the labyrinth path. In the end, he only needed to use the labyrinth key to solve the endless changes of the labyrinth world. However, he did not do anything. He had been idling around in different worlds. What was he thinking? He might be trying to stall for time. The old man sitting opposite Dong Fong had this suspicion. The problem is, there is not enough time. Dong Fong denied. Maybe he thinks that there is enough time. The old man said again. No, there must be another reason. Yu clan's third young master is definitely not waiting for death. He must be planning something. Moreover, it is a plan that can be reversed. We must not let our guard down. Dong Fong thought hard, but no matter how he guessed, he could not find anything. Chapter 1331. Yu Yang's image appeared in the sky. No matter what he did not miss anything. Fighting, flying, traversing through the different spaces in the maze world. Everything could be seen. However, Dong Fong, who was in the space of the ancient tree, frowned even more. The old man playing the game felt a little strange. He had never seen Dong Fong so distressed before. It should be known that Dong Fong was the wisest person in the Central Divine Hall. Scheming, manipulating, and toying with others were the most common. How could he not see through others? The old man put down his chess piece and asked with a smile, "Do you think there's something wrong with this Titan you?" "I can't feel anything wrong at all. That's why I feel something is wrong." The more Dong Fong thought, the more he felt something was wrong. Even if he's a demon that only appears once every 10,000 years, even if he's the most abnormal Yu Clan third young master, even if he's the luckiest person in the world, so what? This is a space-time maze created by the Master of the Void, Mystery. It was also modified by the Sky Chariot for 10,000 years. In the end, it even fused with your chessboard world. Especially with the interference of my thousands of clones, I don't believe that anyone in the world can escape from it. Unless an ancient god comes, the truth will forever be a mystery. The old man was very calm. Although you're right, Dong Fong was still doubtful. He felt a trace of uneasiness lingering in his heart. Could it be that you, a chess player who has always been watching from the sidelines, also have the confusion of a chess piece? The old man laughed out loud. No, not good. The old man's unintentional words had inadvertently inspired Dong Fong, causing his expression to change greatly. Dong Fong lost his composure and stood there in shock. He raised his head and stared at Yu Yang's image in the sky, his hands trembling uncontrollably. Damn it, this damned Yu Clan's third young master. What's wrong? The originally calm old man was shocked by Dong Fong's expression. Titan Yu has already escaped from my chessboard world. No, he has already completely escaped from the space-time maze created by the Master of the Void, Mystery. The Titan Yu we saw wasn't real at all. He was just a damned illusion. I've always felt that it was strange and suspicious. Why did Titan Yu keep such a low profile? Why didn't he take any action? Actually, he had already taken action a long time ago. After he set up the Heaven Rune at the gate of the world, he left the space-time labyrinth and left our line of sight. He left behind a shadow that looked exactly like him to confuse our eyes while he secretly slipped away. Dong Fong angrily smashed the chess piece in his hand onto the ground. Just now, he thought that his opponent was in his trap. No one wanted to. His opponent, whom he thought he would lose for sure, had already slipped away when he was not paying attention. Furthermore, he had left so quietly that he did not even notice. The old man was stunned. He pointed his right hand at the image of Yu Yang in the sky. He's fake, but it looked very real, exactly the same as the original Titan Yu. There was no possibility of it being fake at all. Furthermore, could the space-time maze allow Titan Yu to escape? This is impossible. Dong Fong took a deep breath and forcefully regained his calmness. His voice became even colder than frost and snow. This is fake. This Titan Yu is a shadow. He is incomparably real, just like the real Titan Yu. However, he is fake. He is just an illusion. I believe that this is Titan Yu's innate skill. I understand now. Why was Titan Yu so low-key in his previous performance? Not only his performance in the space-time maze, but also in the battle before this. With his ability, he could completely suppress his opponent. However, he did not, so he was doing this on purpose. He hid his strength deeply and left behind a shadow that could not completely replace him to confuse us. This fellow, did he prepare for this before the battle? He was really an opponent that could make people go crazy. Yu Clan's third young master. You must have gone to the Radiant Light Mountain to challenge Ji Zun of the temple, right? The old man was shocked. Yu Clan's third young master went to the Radiant Light Mountain. Dong Fong nodded and said with certainty. He did not completely escape from a space-time maze. On the contrary, he used a shortcut of the space-time maze to head towards the Radiant Mountain. This judgment made the old man speechless for a long time. After a long time, he sighed. Looks like Titan Yu has an innate skill that is not inferior to mine. Although I can transform into millions of people, it is still an innate skill. It is not possible to hide from a god ranker. However, this Titan Yu actually used his shadow to confuse our eyes. Sometimes I don't want to admit it, but there's no other way. Our generation is really old. Radiant Mountain. It was also known as the Divine Mountain in Heaven Realm. It had always been a pilgrimage place for Heaven Realm warriors. The central shrine that controlled the world for tens of thousands of years was built on top of it. This world-shaking mountain that even Queen Vivian Lee could not conquer was the Radiant Mountain. It was not just a simple mountain, but a world mountain that was even bigger than a normal dimension world. Just based on the surface area, it was probably 100 times bigger than the entire Tong Tian Tower's 10th floor. If the soaring dragon continent was compared to it, it would probably be like a pebble at the foot of the mountain. If the heaven stairway was the world tree, then the Radiant Mountain was the world mountain. A world mountain that formed the whole world with mountains. Its bottom was said to be the abyss of the dark world. The everlasting hatred prison and the prisoner's secret room, managed by the warden of the central shrine, Tantai Tumia, was at the bottom of the Radiant Mountain. The dark world that was suppressed by the Radiant Mountain would never be able to rise again. Just like the fallen warriors that were exiled in the dark world, they would forever be slaves and criminals that were controlled by the central shrine. The lower part of the Radiant Mountain existed in Heaven Realm. The pilgrimage of Heaven Realm warriors mostly gathered at the foot of the Radiant Mountain. The entrance of the central shrine was the door of the shrine guarded by the giant god Nagato. The middle part was where the shrine of wind, fire, water, earth, light, and dark was located. The upper part was located in Heaven Realm. It was also the real starting point of the Great Radiant Mountain and the central shrine. It was also the real hub of the central shrine. Is this what the legendary Central Divine Hall looks like? At the foot of the Radiant Mountain, at the beginning of the path to heaven, in front of the shrine, an uninvited guest suddenly appeared. Unlike the pilgrims who prostrated themselves on the ground, this young man's face did not have that kind of pious light at all. Instead, there was an endless murderous intention that could not be concealed. In his hand was a Gemini mask that surpassed the sacred level and had special power. Before he put it on, it had already turned the world within a kilometer into black and white. Under the guidance of a young man's will, the world within a kilometer of only black and white was not fixed. On the contrary, they were constantly changing, like two giant black and white fish circling each other. More than a kilometer away, in the space further away, there was a bright and shining galaxy. These stars were born one by one. One by one they rose, all the way to the sky. Countless deity Templar warriors and the deity Templar commanders who were guarding the entrance of the deity Templar surged out like a tidal wave and surrounded this mysterious young man from afar. However, due to the fear of his prestige, nobody dared to attack without a leader since the first captain on duty was not around. This is really out of my expectation. Could it be that all the young people in Tong Tian Tower are so outstanding? A golden light shot down from the sky. Before the dazzled shrine warriors could recover, there was already an old man holding a cane in the field. His hair and beard were all white, and he had a ruddy complexion. Not only was there a god-level emblem on his forehead, there was also an incomparably beautiful light wheel on his back, which was as brilliant as the sun. Yu Yang, who slowly put on the Gemini mask, did not know the old man in front of him at all. I'm just a time prisoner, nothing more. After so many years, I have almost forgotten my own name. The old man seriously recalled for a long time before he finally remembered his name. Everlasting Hatred. Who is the captain to you? Yu Yang had only heard of the first captain on duty in the Central Shrine. Maybe the 19th generation great-grandson. Maybe the 18th generation. It has been too long. I have completely forgotten. This everlasting hatred old man seemed to have a bad memory. Since you're the captain's elder, then things will be much easier. Yu Yang clapped his hands and praised. Your 19th generation great-grandson, the captain, owes me a few divine equipment. As his elder, even if you can't pay him back in full, shouldn't you help him pay some interest? Interest? The everlasting hatred old man had never heard of a divine equipment having interest. Everyone knows that I am an honest, loyal, righteous, noble, and generous person. I am usually the kindest person in the world. Many young ladies say that if they want to find a boyfriend, they should find someone like me. How could a good man like me, who is generous, who takes pleasure in helping others, and who sees money as dirt, Do something as shameless as multiplying interest every day. As long as it's 9 out 13 returns, it will be enough. I have always been generous to my friends. Your 19th generation great-grandson, the senior captain, borrowed 9 of my divine equipment yesterday. You don't have to return too much today. Just return 13 of them. Yu Yong said with a smile on his face, as if he was making a fortune. As expected of the Yu clan's third young master. The everlasting hatred old man was so impressed that he almost wanted to write a shameless banner for Yu Yong as a souvenir. As expected of the legendary stingy senior Chonghen, who loves money as much as his life, is stingy, doesn't repay his debts, and refuses to die until the end. Yu Yong also clapped and laughed. The East can't do anything to you, but that doesn't mean that you can run to the central shrine and behave atrociously. The everlasting hatred old man advised Yu Yong to look at the situation clearly. Well said. The prison emperor can't do anything to you, but that doesn't mean that you can ignore the fact that you went to the Tong Tian Tower and molested a sow and pushed an old granny into the sea. If Yu Yong became a judge one day, he believed that there wouldn't be any misjudged cases in this world anymore. Everything would definitely be unjust. Hearing Yu Yong accuse him of going to the Tong Tian Tower and molesting a sow, the everlasting hatred old man was so angry that his nose became crooked. Pushing an old granny into the sea was one thing, but he might have done that many times in the past. What was with that molesting a sow? At the foot of the Great Light Mountain, the ancient code is so majestic. You're just a little kid, and you want to challenge the central shrine? Not to mention you, even your master, Fei Wan Li, who is known as the conquering queen and wants to conquer the heaven realm, wouldn't dare to step on this mountain. The everlasting hatred old man sneered. I don't dare to step on this mountain? What a joke. Behind Yu Yong, Queen Vivian, Li suddenly appeared and looked down on everyone. Chapter 1332. In front of her, the holy light mountain that pierced through the sky seemed to have become shorter in an instant. The everlasting hatred old man looked as if he had seen a ghost. You, why did you come out? Impossible. You've already been sealed by the Nirvana seal. Your body and soul should have been destroyed. It is impossible for you to return to the heaven realm. Queen Vivian, Li did not even look at him. In her eyes, the everlasting hatred old man, who was extremely powerful and omnipotent in the eyes of the heaven realm warriors, was no different from a flea. She just reached out and patted Yu Yang's shoulder lightly, comforting him. Little guy, wait for me here for a while. Wait until I beat the unparalleled emperor back to the Black Tower to die. Then I will come and demolish the house with you. Yu Yang hurriedly reminded her, you have to come back quickly, or else what if I get bullied until I cry? The surrounding temple warriors suddenly had the urge to vomit blood when they heard this. It would be good enough if you don't bully others. The everlasting hatred old man's mouth twitched. If he was not afraid of Queen Vivian Li, he would have already slapped Yu Yang's face. Queen Vivian Li laughed. Okay, I will try to come back quickly, but you're not a child anymore. If others bully you, you can fight back. Yu Yang shook his head vigorously. How can I do that? I'm a loyal supporter of pacifism. I only use my mouth and not my fists. When someone slaps the left side of my face, I will offer the right side of my face for him to slap. If others don't like it, then it must be because I did not do well enough. If I don't enjoy myself when others bully me, then I will never be at ease for the rest of my life. The temple warriors were about to explode when they heard this. If it weren't for the fact that they were intimidated by Empress Fei when Li's majesty and were afraid of being killed in a second by her, they would have already jumped out and shouted, Brat, the number of people you've killed is even higher than the Radiance Mountain. Why are you pretending to be kind? Who doesn't know that you are the Yu clan's third young master? Not to mention the Western Heaven Realm. Even in the Central Shrine, you have killed countless people. Why are you still talking about pacifism? Wasn't bullying others and slapping their faces the Yu clan's third young master specialty? Queen Vivian Li, who was in a good mood, laughed along the way. He was already far away. However, her heavenly laughter still lingered in the air. Yu Yang, who had lost his backer, suddenly became obedient, revealing a look that said, "Everyone, don't bully me, or I'll cry." At this moment, Old Man Everlasting Hatred really wanted to smash this kid's head with his walking stick. "I've already come to you with a kitchen knife, and you're still playing dumb? Do you think that I will lower my guard against a man who can deceive the East?" The Old Man of Everlasting Hatred had to use all his patience to restrain himself from smashing the kid's skull. "Do it. There's no need to waste words. You clan's third young master. No matter what you say or do, it's useless. I've already seen through you. I won't do it." Yu Yang raised the pacifist flag high above his head. "Can you stop pretending?" One of the commanders guarding the gate of the shrine finally couldn't help but explode. "If you want to fight, then fight. If you don't want to fight, then get lost. Don't waste time here, okay? You really want to fight?" Yu Yang, who was surrounded by enemies, looked around and suddenly laughed. "It's easy to fight, but if you do that, I'll be tricked. Don't think that I don't know that your shrine has a special ancient code. If I attack, it'll be equivalent to invading your shrine. Then, I'll be punished by the ancient code of Radiance Mountain. Why don't you attack first? Isn't it because of the existence of this ancient code? Although this is my first time here, don't think that I don't know what kind of place this Radiance Mountain used to be. This was the original prison of the Upper Realm, and all the criminals of the Upper Realm were thrown here. Over time, this place became a paradise for criminals, and when the warden was derelict in his duty and cooperated with the biggest criminal to take control of this prison, the building of the Radiance Mountain changed its name to Central Temple. Yu Yang pointed at Old Man Everlasting Hatred in front of him. "You are one of the criminals from the past." Old Man Everlasting Hatred was so angry that he laughed. "A god-level criminal? I, a supreme god-level martial artist, have also become a criminal?" Yu Yang laughed. "If you're not a criminal, you, a god-level ranker, try to walk out of Radiance Mountain. I say, Senior Everlasting Hatred, you don't have to walk far. Can you walk in front of me? If not for the ancient code, I'm afraid you would have already attacked me. How could you let a junior like me go?" Old Man Everlasting Hatred shut his mouth. He was speechless. With the appearance of the Conquest Queen, she might not be able to kill you instantly, but she won't need much effort to deal with you. What gives you the guts to stand in front of her and act presumptuously? It's fine if you're a god level, but why aren't those shrine warriors, who are weaker than ants, paralyzed on the ground? Could it be that their guts are bigger than the sky? Could it be that they aren't even afraid of the Conquest Queen who swept through the heaven realm? What a joke. All of you are just relying on the ancient laws of this prison. Yu Yang spat on the ground. His disdain made the surrounding warriors feel ashamed. "If you have the guts, come up and try. If you don't, then scram." Old Man Everlasting Hatred snorted. What was the truth? The truth would often change according to one's strength. Back then, even if Radiance Mountain was the prison of the Heaven Realm, so what? Tens of thousands of years later, it was the Radiance Mountain that intimidated the entire Heaven Realm. It was the central shrine that controlled the entire world. Even in the Heaven Realm, no one and no force could shake its position, let alone a small place like Heaven Realm and Tong Tian Tower. This was the truth of history. This was the result of one's strength. The shrine warriors also became noisy, shouting and shouting. Their words were extremely unrestrained, and some of them even made vulgar gestures to provoke him. Yu Yang used his right index finger to lightly tap on the Gemini mask on his face, pointing directly at the eye of the underworld that had just filled the gap between his eyebrows. Everyone was curious. They quieted down for a moment, wanting to see what this brat was up to. Yu Yang's expression suddenly became solemn. His eyes flashed with an incomparably fierce divine light. "In the name of the Holy Sovereign, I, Yu Yang, Titan Yu, declare that Radiance Mountain is a prison that has failed to guard. It must be rejudged, judged, and cleansed until there are no more crimes and no more evil." His words shocked the Old Man Everlasting Hatred. But when he looked carefully, there was no golden light above Yu Yang's head, nor was there any change in the starlight behind him. The ancient code was still there. Everything was normal. Only then did he calm down with great difficulty. Fortunately, this Yu clan's third young master was not the holy sovereign. Otherwise, once he declared it, it would be like a god's decree. When the time comes to execute his god power, not only would he not be restricted by the ancient code, he would also receive great support and protection. With your current god power, you want to declare as the holy sovereign? What a joke. Even your master Faye, Wenli, does not have this ability. You are just a small god that she created with her god power and god blood. How dare you be so arrogant? Why don't you take a look at where you are? Ha ha. You really overestimate yourself. Without your master Faye, Wenli, in my eyes, you are just a small stinky bug. The old man, everlasting hatred, really wanted to slap this brat to death in front of him. But he could not because this brat was just standing outside of the Radiance Mountain. He was only one step away, but the old man, everlasting hatred, had no way to cross over. He was sure that if this Yu clan's third young master dared to take a step forward, even if it was an insignificant step, this brat would definitely die. The warriors of the Divine Hall burst into laughter. Some of them even rolled on the ground, tears flowing down their cheeks. A brat who did not have supreme power, but was arrogantly declaring in the name of the Holy Sovereign, was he trying to boast to the heavens? Yu Yang remained expressionless. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he took a step downwards. When he stepped on the first step of the mountain of brightness, he had already raised his right hand before the warriors of the Divine Hall could react. Like swatting a fly, he slapped the warriors of the Divine Hall who were still laughing and jeering at each other to death in front of him. You dare to attack the temple? The old man, everlasting hatred, was startled at first. Then he became ecstatic. Attack first? Forget about the ancient code. Even if you did not have it, you were still looking for death. Old man, I should hit you. If I don't hit you, you will be sad. Yu Yang casually took out his crescent blade and waved it. Other than the old man, everlasting hatred, everyone else was beheaded and killed on the spot. Before the corpses of the temple warriors fell to the ground, the world changed. Endless flames rose up on one side of Yu Yang, and endless cold air descended on the other side, forming a terrifying world of two extremes. The temple warriors who were killed on the spot, as well as their mounts and beasts, were all sealed in this world of two extremes. Some turned into flames, some turned into flying snow. Yu Yang slowly clenched his right hand. Everything in the world of two extremes was instantly compressed into a ball of fire and ice. Ha! With a crisp sound, the ball of ice and fire shattered. The two opposing energies neutralized each other and disappeared. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, the everlasting hatred old man would not have believed that the young man in front of him possessed such divine power. He was able to kill thousands of deity Templars on the spot and annihilate them. Even their souls were completely annihilated in the void. Brat, you are really ruthless. I have underestimated you. The old man, everlasting hatred, was furious. There were many temple warriors, so it was not a pity that they died. However, killing them in front of him was like slapping his own face. You are not underestimating me. You are just blind from old age. It was unknown when Yu Yang had appeared behind the old man of everlasting hatred in a flash. He punched the old man of everlasting hatred's protective divine power and pressed his other hand on the back of the old man of everlasting hatred's head. He had brutally pressed the god-level rancor who had lived for tens of thousands of years onto the ground. Rumble. The whole Radiance Mountain shook. Before the terrifying shockwave could spread far, Yu Yang had already thrown the old man, everlasting hatred, into the sky. In the sky, Yu Yang appeared in a flash. He grabbed the old man, everlasting hatred's ankle and fiercely threw him down towards the temple gate that was as thin as a palm. Now that I am the prison warden, life and death are in my hands. All of you can die. Chapter 1333. When the dust settled, the shrine's door that was protected by the ancient code was still standing. However, the huge door pillar was starting to crack. If Yu Yang continued to attack, the shrine's door that had been standing for tens of thousands of years would become history. The everlasting hatred old man, who had smashed a corner of the shrine's door and sunk deep into the ground, crawled out of the hole in pain. He rubbed his waist and groaned in pain. If I wasn't a god-ranked and had divine power to protect my body, I would have been killed by you, you clan's third young master. Although my bones are fine, it hurts a lot. Is it impossible to execute criminals in this prison? Yu Yang had found out that the people locked in here could be tortured, beaten, and scolded, but they could not be killed. At least, before he took over the Radiance Mountain as the god's prison, he could not go beyond the ancient code to execute any god-ranked criminals. Even if you don't have the ancient code, you won't be able to kill me with that little bit of divine power in your body. The everlasting hatred old man laughed coldly. He leaned on the walking stick in his hand lightly. His body emitted countless rays of incomparably brilliant divine light. A vast divine power that had been stored in his body for tens of thousands of years erupted like a volcano. Countless rays of divine light and divine power fused with each other. Under the effect of the old man of everlasting regret's unique godhood, they turned into a very strange divine ring. It was crimson gold in color, and it looked as if it was real. It covered the old man of everlasting regret's body, including his forehead, neck, arms, wrists, waist, and shins. The everlasting hatred old man's body was also changing rapidly. Other than becoming bigger, he was also recovering his youthful vigor. When he unsealed the walking stick in his hand and turned it into a divine-ranked purple gold halberd with his divine power, his appearance and body had returned to the prime of his 30s or 40s. His beard was as black as ink, his hair was like dark clouds, and his strong muscles were bulging. With a light stomp of his foot, he left a deep footprint on the hard ground of the shrine. When he steadied himself, he casually waved his hand, and all the clouds in the sky suddenly dispersed to reveal the sun. With his divine sense, they all scattered, revealing the clear sky above his head. Your name is Tong Hu, right? Yu Yang couldn't help but retort. He was obviously a god tier, and his body couldn't possibly age. So why did he have to pretend to be an old man? You clan's third young master, unseal your divine power too. I don't want to carry out meaningless tests. The battle between deities will last for at least a few days. I can't wait to have a good battle. Eternal hatred no longer looked like an old man. He, who had recovered his divine level golden body, was a mighty and majestic giant. He was at least 5 meters tall. Yu Yang gently floated down and landed in front of him. Compared to him, Yu Yang was like a tiny dot. Eternal hatred casually stretched out a finger. It was also thicker than Yu Yang's arm. Yu Yang sized him up. He didn't unseal his divine power like lonesome hatred did. Instead, he sneaked over to the door of the shrine to check on the damage. Changhen was baffled by his actions. Aren't you here to cause trouble? Why are you concerned about the damage? It's a pity. If I had time, I would carry this door back to exchange for malt candies. How much would that be worth? Yu Yang sighed. Changhen's words made him speechless. Other than Yu Shuang, no one else in the world would agree with Yu Yang's action of carrying the door of the shrine to exchange for malt candies. Of course, if it was just to show off, Fatty Hai would be the first to raise his hand in approval. Yu Yang picked up a huge brick and weighed it in his hand. He sighed, these are all good things. How can such good things be used on the floor of a prison? Moreover, the door of a prison should be sturdy. Why make it so beautiful? If this wasn't a prison, I would have moved in. Eternal hatred didn't resent Yu Yang at all. As long as you stay here for tens of thousands of years, even if this place is 100 times more beautiful, I believe you won't feel anything. Eternal hatred felt nauseous towards the Radiant Mountain. He had lived here for far too long. If he could change it, he would rather stay in a shabby latrine under the Tong Tian Tower than stay in this magnificent central temple. Even if I have good fortune, I won't enjoy it. Yu Yang shook his head and sighed. He immediately took out the prison emperor's 7 stars pillar and attacked without hesitation. He didn't care about formalities or hypocrisy at all. He smashed Eternal Hatred's head with a heavy blow. Half of Eternal Hatred's body was smashed into the stone floor. But the expression on his face, it didn't change at all. He waited for Yu Yang to raise the prison emperor's 7 stars pillar again and asked calmly, "Can we finally fight?" Yu Yang's second heavy blow landed as fast as lightning. He replied calmly, "You are a senior. Why don't you let me, a junior, have 3 moves first?" The purple gold halberd tore the sky apart. Wherever the golden halberd slashed, the divine power was piercingly cold. Everything in the world turned into powder. Yu Yang used the mysterious 3 styles to dodge the attack. The afterimage caused the divine power that exploded from the tip of the halberd to disappear in an instant. On the incomparably hard stone steps of the shrine, a huge crater that was a kilometer long, 5 meters wide, and 3 meters deep appeared. An old ghost that has lived for tens of thousands of years. You really have some skills. Yu Yang carried the gigantic prison emperor's 7 stars pillar and appeared at the top of the shrine's door. He calmly took out a chicken drumstick and nibbled on it. "Your speed is not bad." Eternal Hatred lowered his right hand that was holding the halberd and raised his left hand. Under the control of the divine power, the light wheel behind him turned into thousands of golden spears that covered the entire sky. A special power of the ancient code that he comprehended with his innate skill and condensed from his divine spark was connected to every spear tip like a silk net. It interweaved into a 10,000-meter wide space of the ancient code, enveloping himself and Yu Yang within it. Yu Yang used the chicken drumstick in his hand to touch it lightly. The power of the ancient code instantly destroyed the fragrant chicken drumstick, leaving not even a bit of powder behind. Yu Yang's eyes opened wider than a cow's. "Old man, you can't be, right? The power of the ancient code is so powerful. Give me back my chicken drumstick." Eternal Hatred sneered, "Under my heart-piercing law, as long as you touch any of the divine spears or any of the divine threads, you will be punished by the ancient code. The lightest punishment is equivalent to the pain of 10,000 arrows piercing your heart. If you don't believe me, you could try." Yu Yang had always politely declined such brainless actions like "just try it." "Do you think I'm that idiot Fatty High?" Even Fatty High wouldn't try the punishment of the power of the ancient code. He was an idiot, but not to such a pitiful extent. When Yu Yang saw that his opponent had used the power of the ancient code, he finally perked up and became serious. He decided to play with the power of the ancient code too. Because he hadn't completely comprehended the Holy Supreme Realm, the power of the ancient code that Yu Yang comprehended was still in its infancy. Without wrath, the golden giant that could control fate couldn't do as it pleased. Therefore, he could only use 2 or 3 types of power of the ancient code. He didn't have many choices. One was the power of the ancient code of the divine power of disaster. As long as he didn't predict it, his opponent would definitely suffer for 18 lifetimes. The other was the power of the starry sky, imitating the power of the Night Empress. Other than the above 2, there was also the rule of the moon fate that he accidentally pushed down a certain illusory moon goddess. Of course, Yu Yang could also use the ancient code of creation and ancient code of fate that he had comprehended himself. However, most of them were like little bean sprout. They were still growing and couldn't be of much use for the time being. The cunning guy from another world wouldn't easily use them before he fought against the Ji-Zun of the Divine Temple and the Peerless Emperor. What kind of relationship do we have? We don't get to know each other if we don't fight. After a while, we're already old friends. Since that's the case, let's use the whole moon to play. After a certain Yu clan's 3rd young master pushed down a certain goddess, the moon fate and illusory moon divine power of the first divine wife were naturally born in his body. Although it was his first time using it, it felt pretty good. He used it very smoothly. A bright moon silently rose behind Yu Yang. It was as bright as frost. The moonlight was omnipotent. Wherever it went, there was nothing that it couldn't turn into eternity. The dust that was stirred up on the ground also stopped moving and floated quietly in the air. Chang Hen was stunned. He realized that his opponent's power of the ancient code could actually invade his ancient code space. What was even more strange was that after this power of the ancient code invaded, there was no warning or resistance. The heart-piercing code coexisted with his opponent's code, and there was no conflict at all. What was even more unbelievable was that under this moonlight-like power of the ancient code, his whole body felt like it was petrified. Was it an illusion? Or was it a real reaction? The shocked Chang'an released his divine power. He stomped on the ground with both feet, and his huge body soared into the sky. However, what he didn't expect was that the huge force that could have easily soared 10,000 meters was only enough for him to hover 3 inches above the ground. He didn't even reach half a foot. His stomp shattered the incomparably hard divine temple's stone surface, but his leap into the sky was pitifully small. If you're big, your jumping ability will be slightly weaker. I understand very well. Who doesn't know about Big Yao's tragedy? However, Yang was different. He was like a fish in water or a tiger with wings. He was as fast as a stream of light and appeared in front of Chang'an in a flash. He stepped on the tip of Chang'an's halberd and slid on the halberd shaft. He then punched Chang'an's left eye fiercely, causing Chang'an to see stars and become disoriented. Chang'an's body was 1,000,000 times heavier than a rock. However, Yu Yang was as agile as a swimming dragon. He easily dodged Chang'an's counterattack and pressed his hands on the top of Chang'an's head. His leg struck 18 times in a row. In the end, he even did a beautiful inverted golden hook like a swallow returning to its nest. Impossible. Chang'an couldn't believe that this was real. I also feel that it's very strange. Yu Yang expressed that using other people's divine power and ancient code was indescribable, but the effect was surprisingly good. This isn't your divine power and ancient code at all. Chang'an was about to go crazy. The divine power that this brat used didn't seem to be something that he had comprehended. This was because he had a feeling that the more he used it, the more familiar it became. Only when he used other people's things would he have such an inconceivable reaction. I'm just borrowing it temporarily. Furthermore, it's my first time using it. Don't be too calculative, okay? Yu Yang felt that his performance should be passable. However, was this lunar fate code really used like this by Yu Yang? In the time-space labyrinth, in the shattered void of the gate to the heaven realm, if the 3 stone-like shadows could still speak, they would definitely correct Yu Yang's current mistake. Unfortunately, this answer, this truth, could only be kept in silence for the time being. Furthermore, this period of time was very likely to be an eternity. Chapter 1334. On the 10th level of the Heaven Stairway, the Void World, which was already broken and had space-time cracks appearing and disappearing, became even more broken due to the brutal fight between the 2 10,000-meter-tall God-level giants. If it wasn't for the fact that the ancient rules were still there to keep the world from collapsing, the entire world would have been annihilated by their crazy fight. There were no spectators or judges. The 2 giants were engaged in an endless battle with the heaven and earth as their arena. With their abilities, even if they fought for 3 days and 3 nights, there would be no result. Under the damage they had unintentionally caused, the mountains could be flattened in an instant, the oceans could dry up into deserts in the blink of an eye, and the clear sky could be torn into pieces at any time and reassembled unbelievably, turning into something like a rotten fishing net that was full of holes. Fortunately, there were no living creatures in the void world on the 10th level of the Heaven Stairway. Otherwise, no living creature would be able to survive the catastrophe of the God-level war. Even a God-level expert who could dominate the upper realm would not be able to survive for more than a minute if he dared to intervene, let alone a human's body of flesh and blood. There were no shock waves from the air explosion, and there were no loud sounds of mountains collapsing, because even the sound was directly swallowed by the divine power. In the entire world, there were only 2 10,000-meter-tall golden gods standing there. The rest were either in the process of destruction or waiting to be destroyed. Damn it, you're really ruthless. A golden god with a giant horn on his head was once again knocked to the ground by the golden god, who was 500 or 600 meters taller. On the ground, his body created a huge crater that was a few hundred kilometers wide and a dozen kilometers deep. He was bathed in blood and was now covered with cuts and bruises. Not only that, there was an extremely terrifying injury on his chest. It was a transparent hole in the front and back of his body. No one knew who had punched it, but even his 10,000-meter-tall, god-level body could not withstand it. You're not any better. How dare you use the monkey steals peach just now? You shameless fellow. Can you still be considered a god-level expert? The golden god who had one eye on the sun and one eye on the moon was also in a sorry state. He did not have the confidence of a complete victory. I used the lion steals peach. The horned golden god looked regretful. It seemed like he did not manage to steal anything just now. Scram back to the heaven realm. You don't need to care about the matters of Tong Tian Tower. The golden deity, whose eyes were like the sun and moon, was extremely annoyed. Sky Split Tower is now my little brother's. I can come and go as I please. What does it have to do with you? You're just an outdated old fool. You should be rotting in your coffin, yet you still run out to harass the juniors. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? An old man who had lived for tens of thousands of years actually dared to make life difficult for a child. Not to mention me. Even if the one being bullied wasn't my little brother and was an outsider, I wouldn't be able to stand it. Do you think that my nickname of Heaven's #1 righteous demon dragon is just for show? The golden god with a horn was naturally M.O. Long. It was unknown if it was because he knew you young, but this bearded Uncle M.O. Long actually dared to say that he was the most righteous person in the heaven realm. How could the creatures in the heaven realm who had been harmed by him endure this? The golden god with eyes as bright as the sun and moon was speechless. The nickname of the most righteous person in the heavenly realm, not to mention saying it out loud, even hearing it would make one blush. If it wasn't for the fact that I haven't recovered to my peak state, you would have long been beaten into a pulp by me. Why are you so arrogant? The golden god with horns was very unhappy. After fighting for the past few days, he had suffered a lot. I'm just going easy on you. If I really fought you, you wouldn't even have a single intact bone left. The golden god with eyes as bright as the sun and moon sneered. You still dare to brag? The golden god with horns was furious when he heard that. At least I'm a little better than a masochist like you. The golden god with eyes as bright as the sun and moon blocked his opponent who was pouncing towards him. With an extremely agile turn, he instantly pulled his opponent's huge body up and threw him with all his might. The huge body of the golden god with horns streaked across the sky and smashed into a mountain range nearly 1,000 kilometers away. In an instant, that mountain turned into dust. The golden god with horns was extremely furious. He stomped his feet on the ground. The entire ground exploded. It was even faster than a meteor. His huge body flew back in front of the golden god with eyes as bright as the sun and moon. This time, there was no possibility of him being thrown out. He grabbed his opponent's huge wrist and kicked his chest, heavily kicking the golden god with eyes as bright as the sun and moon in the chest. When this move was effective, the golden god with horns controlled his opponent's huge arm again, intending to use a strangling technique to seal off his opponent's struggle. The golden god with eyes as bright as the sun and moon roared. His voice was thousands of times louder than thunder. His divine power exploded wildly. He lifted the enemy who was locked behind his back and smashed him in front of him. Then he pressed his opponent's forehead and prepared to give him a ruthless punch that made him unrecognizable. The golden god with horns who was smashed below him did not want to fall behind. He used both his hands to grab his opponent's neck tightly. He even raised his knee, intending to end his son's life. Just as they were fighting fiercely and fiercely, suddenly, a voice rang out. "You two, are you gay?" The sky and earth darkened. When it became bright again, the world of the void, which was filled with the combined will and power of law of the two golden gods, suddenly had one more person. The two golden gods who were fighting were stunned, and they couldn't help but raise their heads to look at the sky. The two golden gods, who were tens of thousands of meters tall, originally thought that the brilliant divine light and divine will of their bodies were enough to overwhelm everything in the world. However, they realized that there was actually such a strange and unique person in the world. The light on his body was like a precious diamond. Although it was not big and did not exceed the size of his body, it was extremely condensed and dazzling like the ultimate star. To a certain extent, it was even better than the extraordinary divine light that they were emitting. That dazzling brilliance was something that even the first light of heaven and earth, or the heavenly fire of the sun and moon, could not take away. In this world, there was nothing that could conceal the birth of his divine power. There was nothing that could suppress the natural divine power. What astonished the two golden deities the most was that this special deity was actually a woman. You're my sister-in-law, that human Jizun, right? The golden god with horns quickly turned over and pushed his opponent away. He patted his body and tried to bring out the aura of a boss. Little Yu Yang must have told you that I am the demon dragon, his big brother. You are really the big brother? Jizun expressed deep doubts about this ranking. Of course, if you don't believe me, you can go to a place where there are no people to ask. The demon dragon quickly patted his chest and promised. This time, even Jizun was speechless. Could it be that everyone who was familiar with Yu Yang would be led astray by him? An old guy who had lived for nearly 100,000 years. Couldn't he have a little personality? The golden god with eyes like the sun and moon covered his head with a headache. If he hadn't fought for a few days and nights, he wouldn't have believed that the Ruffy-like guy in front of him was the demon dragon who was known as the #1 villain in the Heaven Realm. Don't worry, I'm the big brother. I will cover you. I don't need your help here. I can easily deal with this *T Emperor Wu Shuang by myself. The demon dragon patted his chest and then intentionally or unintentionally pressed his hand on the big transparent hole in front and back. You are the Emperor Wu Shuang? Jizun no longer looked at the demon dragon, who was obviously a dead chicken trying to eat rice, and turned to the golden god with eyes like the sun and moon. There is no benefit to being called the Emperor Wu Shuang. It is depressing enough to be in prison, and there are people who come to disturb me every 1,000 or hundreds of years. If I can change it, I would rather change it to a name like Useless Ghost or something like that. The golden god with eyes like the sun and moon shook his head and said to Jizun in the sky, You are a junior. I will not fight with you. Does this mean that you admit defeat? Jizun's words almost made the Emperor Wu Shuang choke to death. On the other side, the demon dragon gave a thumbs up on the spot. Although you are the strongest human Jizun in the modern era of the Tong Tian Tower, it does not mean that your strength is really the strongest in the world. The Emperor Wu Shuang didn't care about it, because he was a junior. If it was someone from the Heaven Realm or the Heaven Realm who said this, he would have already smashed him with a big fist. No matter who it is, I will definitely be the first. Not to mention you. Even Yu Yang is the same. Jizun proudly snorted. There's only one first in the Tong Tian Tower, and that is me. What if someone is not convinced? The demon dragon took the opportunity to add oil to the fire and provoke, then beat him until he is convinced. Jizun had always done things like this, simply and directly. Good, I admire strong people like you the most. The demon dragon almost took out a book and asked for an autograph. He clapped his hands and praised. Now there are at least 2 people in the Tong Tian Tower who are worthy of my admiration. One is that little girl, Fei Wenli. I am so arrogant, but I dare not say that I will destroy the Heaven Realm, but she dares to do that. I can't help but admire her. Now there is you, little sister-in-law. I also admire you, because you are a tough woman who dares to pull down an old ghost like the Emperor Wu Shuang. Good, the Tong Tian Tower needs descendants like you. Tough woman. Jizun felt that the demon dragon had been completely led astray by that kid Yu Yang. Only those guys who could not spit out such boring adjectives would keep coming out. What Emperor Wu Shuang? He is just a stepping stone. Hurry up and slap his face. Don't be polite with me. Seniors are meant to be eliminated. The demon dragon saw that Jizun's expression was not right and quickly changed the topic. Among so many little sisters-in-law, he felt that the one in front of him was the most serious. She was not as easy to talk to as the little girl in Anne and the hornless dragon girl. As the #1 villain in the Heaven Realm, he had to be careful when he made a joke. Senior, I respectfully address you as senior. If you admit defeat now, give up the disturbance of the world, and return to the Black Tower to sleep, then I can pretend that nothing happened. Jizun paid her respect to the Emperor Wu Shuang, but her words were not so tactful. She was very direct and did not care about her senior's face at all. What if I don't admit defeat? The Emperor Wu Shuang was so proud. If there was a junior begging him to return to the Black Tower to sleep, then it would be fine. Admit defeat? Was it also something that the Emperor Wu Shuang would do? In this world, who dared to speak like this? Even the divine palace's supreme heavenly chariot would not dare to say such words to him. Jizun's face was solemn, and the divine power on her body was about to be released. In an instant, all things in the world were guided by her divine sense. Since that is the case, then please enlighten me, senior. Her attitude was so firm that not only the Emperor Wu Shuang, but even the demon dragon, who had just added oil to the fire, was stunned. Are you serious? This guy is the Emperor Wu Shuang, the Emperor Wu Shuang. Although he is slightly weaker than me, to be honest, this guy is quite thick-skinned. Do you really want to fight? That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.